We'll give it another 60 seconds or so before we get going. All right, everyone, I guess we'll get started. It looks like everyone has showed up. Welcome, happy Sunday. It's a big day. Today is demo day for the spring 2021 cohort. Welcome, we're very excited. We hope that all of you are excited as well. Thanks for everyone for coming out. We look forward to hearing the pitches and seeing how it all goes today. And we're hoping that every team has a lot of fun, and best of luck to everyone. It's gonna be a great day. So for those who are joining us for the first time and don't really know too much about Launch, we'll tell you a little bit about Launch, the accelerator. We're a founder-first accelerator. The teams have been going with us for a couple months now. They started out with Bootcamp 1 and then a couple weeks of instruction, Bootcamp 2, and now they're here for the final pitches. You can see some of the teams that have gone through the accelerator on the left. We've been connecting startups to the entrepreneurship community and the VC community across the entire UC system. We've had 100+ teams go through the accelerator, and since 2015, our teams have gone on to raise over $200 million. So we're super proud of that. We're super happy to be a part of this, and we hope that all of you have learned a lot from the program and have gotten a lot out of it. Looking specifically at the spring 2021 cohort, we've had 26 startups join us in the beginning, 8 out of the 10 UC campuses represented, which I believe is a record for us. 2 of our companies were founded by veterans, 13 were founded by underrepresented minorities, and 7 were founded by women. So we're incredibly proud of these stats. I think this is the most diverse cohort that we've ever had, and we're really excited and proud of the progress that we've made and the progress that all the teams have made. And then I'll pass it off to my partner in crime, Eileen. Eileen.
Thank you so much, Graham. We want to say thank you to all the mentors for UC Launch. They have been helping our startups, develop business ideas, test product viability, and point them in the right direction when they have questions or need resources. Some of them have been with UC Launch for years now, so we are so grateful to your support. We would also like to give a special shout out to our 3 faculty members, Rhonda, Andre, and Darren, who are also with us here today. They have been literally holding the founders' hands for the past 3 months and have given invaluable advice and support for all the teams. A quick overview of today's agenda, pretty simple. We will first have a keynote speaker session with Ryan McDonald. We'll introduce the judges, and then we'll hear the spring 2021 top 10 startup pitches. Get excited about that. And afterwards, while the judges regroup to deliberate, we'll have a founders fireside chat with Brad Bao and Richard Ding. Incredible entrepreneurs. I'm very excited about that. And afterwards, of course, we will have the award ceremony. And at the very end, we will host a startup expo. We'll create breakout rooms for all the startups in our spring 2021 cohort. And you'll be able to move yourselves into the startups if you're interested in talking more with them. And with that, we'll have Ryan McDonald. Just a quick background on Ryan. He was most recently the CFO and co-founder of a company, a relationship intelligence platform acquired by Cisco in May 2018 for $270 million. A company created AI-driven products for finding new prospects and strengthening your relationships built on the largest database of decision makers in the world. He was previously CFO at Ning, where he shepherded the business from a freemium model to focusing exclusively on its subscription business, increasing the paid user base by 5 times. The turnaround resulted in Ning's acquisition by Mo Media. Prior to that, he was a partner at early stage fund Constant Ventures and an engagement manager at McKinsey. He is a board member at the V Foundation Wine Celebration, helping raise over $118 million for cancer research. He holds an MBA degree from Wharton and a Bachelor of Science degree from UC Berkeley. On a personal level, he is relentlessly proud of his wife and son, and in his free time, he loves to paint and work on projects around the home. Okay, and with that, I'll hand over to Ryan. Thank you so much for spending time with us on a Sunday afternoon. Ryan.
Absolutely, my pleasure to be here. I'm going to switch gears and take over my desktop here. All right, perfect. So I want to just spend a little bit of time going over the company journey, and then we can open it up to Q&A. So as you saw on the last slide, perfect. So we'll do 30 minutes, 25, 30 minutes about my journey and the insights that hopefully can bear some fruit for your own startup journey, and then really open it up to Q&A. There's 5 sections I'd love to talk about. First is there's just a set of skills I picked up along the way prior to being a startup founder, and I'd love to share what some of those are, and there's other ways to pick them up, but things that I found were extremely helpful throughout the process. Then move into the early days at a company and just talk about the foundational things we did at the beginning of the company that really helped us throughout the 5-year journey. Then go into the cornfield years, the build it and they will come. I mean, there's just all the things you have to do in terms of building up the war chest, keeping the team motivated while you're figuring out product market fit. Fourth, in our case, we made a shift from selling to the end user to then selling to the enterprise. And that shift in metrics of success really changed the trajectory of where our company ultimately ended up. And finally, to share a little bit about our experience on the exit and beyond. So life after Berkeley, and I'll go quick on this because I mean, you heard the bio piece, but really what did I get out of those pieces? And I think going straight into consulting at McKinsey, there's really 2 pieces that I think were extremely helpful out of that experience. One was storytelling, and the second is being hypothesis driven. I think that just being able to stop and think about what's the conversation you want to have before you get into Google Slides or PowerPoint and try to build these things is critical, because you're going to have these presentations with your board, with your investors, with any potential customers. And it's really something as simple as that Pixar kind of mindset, which is just take a piece of paper, divide it into a grid, and think about what you want those takeaways to be in that conversation. So you're not churning on this and wasting a lot of time doing a presentation when you're trying to build the business, but also not having your team spin up onto things that ultimately they don't get used. Second on that is just being hypothesis driven. You're going to have to put a stake in the ground all the time. And so it's just figuring out how do you get yourself into a cadence of what data do I need to prove or disprove what I'm trying to do here, and just be very open to that. Along the lines with consulting, it was great early in my career to have an abysmal work-life balance. I think that set the bar for me for a lifetime of putting in long hours and not feeling that there needs to be a work-life distinction. There needs to be much more of an integration. And what I found kind of running companies is just trying to integrate that in. And I think over this last year of us being on lockdown and working from home is realizing there's a lot of things we can do to actually make it work when you don't have a distinct 9-to-5 type job, because it clearly isn't. After consulting, I did a combination of family business and getting my MBA. And I think the big piece I had coming out of that is just think about networking not as a 4-letter word. This is not a negative, and you need to be taking the long view of a network. I see so many people who think of networking as transactional, when really what it is it's building a relationship that could bear fruit 10, 15 years down the road, or may never bear fruit, but you have to go into it with much more of a give, give, get mindset. So helping other people, I feel like that's the power of these tech centers. So things like the Bay Area and other places where we're willing to help other entrepreneurs because we're growing the overall pie, right? And so I think just having that mindset helps. I mean, in random things for when we were starting to do enterprise sales, some of my customers are people I work with at McKinsey, and I never would have thought that I'd be selling to them 20 years later. On the just staying laser focused, just automate away all processes. Really just think about, there's a lot of things where you might get mired in the weeds as the CEO or the founding team members trying to do stuff. Just spend the money to automate them out. So all of the processy things that are not key to your business, just get those kind of off to the side. After that, when I jumped into seed stage investing, obviously you pick up all the ins and outs of deals and term sheets. There's a ton of great content, and I imagine the faculty members have been terrific about teaching you guys about those. So won't cover that, but a piece that I often don't see covered are board dynamics and thinking about the VC situation. So on the board side, you're going to be raising money, and you're going to have those first investors, the next investors, and the valuations hopefully are going up over time. And the incentives and what is a good outcome becomes very different based on when your investors come in, and the advice and the direction that the different board members will want your company to go. You'll see some of that reflected on kind of where they came into your company. So just keep that in mind when you're looking to do it. As well as VCs, they have their own fundraising cycle. They're out talking to their limited partners. They have to have cash come in at some point so they can go have distributions to their investors. So you'll see some of those things pop up. So just be cognizant that they're also in a fundraising world. And then finally, with being a turnaround CFO, it's hard to inherit somebody's business and then have to make changes. But what you can do with your own business is take a fresh look every once in a while, looking at your business model and saying, what assumptions did I have that didn't bear fruit or are fundamentally, something changed in the market. There's an exogenous thing. So just be really open to having a critical eye on your own business. Second, coming out of that is just learning to live in the yellow. You're going to be in situations where you've never done it before, and that's just part of running your own company. And you just have to get used to just mad scramble to pick up those skills, figure out how to solve this problem, and that's just life. And finally, just you live on cash, not revenue, right? So anything you can do when you're thinking about your pricing structure, having annual plans where people can give you that cash ahead of time, getting billing cycles down so you make sure that that cash inflow comes in. You don't spend revenue, right? You spend cash. So just keep those things in mind. So there was 3 of us who started a company. So Amy is the CEO, Matthias is the CTO, and me is the CFO. And Amy and Matthias knew each other for about 8 years at Google. They worked on Google Analytics together and were best friends. Amy and I are married, and so we've been married about 10 years, I think, before we even started a company. So we've been together forever. So the 3 of us, we were really good friends who could say, this is our company. This is something we get to build together. So what do we want to build? So one of the things, and this needs to vary based on what you guys want for your own business, but it's stopping and taking the time to say, what do I want the values of my company to be? So before you have employees, before you name the company even, just think about what you want. And so for us, we boiled it down to 5 things we care about. First and foremost, no assholes. It's going to be very tempting to bring in somebody who's going to fill a need that you have at that moment. But if they have a big ego or they're going to change the dynamic of the team, that can really just cause massive friction in the company. And so when you're thinking about these things, you've got to make sure that you stay true to them, but also be willing to hire and fire against them. Like, you want your values to repel people as much as they attract people. True empathy and passion for the end user. Our fundamental belief is that you as founding teams, or you have to have proprietary access to your end user, you need to understand the pain that they're facing. So when we were building a company, we were building it for us. So we knew on a visceral level what we wanted to do, but we also talked to 200 heads of sales before we got started to make sure that this was something that people really wanted. And as you hire people, you want to have people who are excited about the end user that you're looking to serve. Third, move fast, fix fast. You're a startup. You're going to be making trade-offs. You're going to be making decisions. But as you're doing that, you're accruing technical debt. And so you need to have a set of folks who are willing to pay that down. So your eng and your product leaders have to be willing to buffer that into the timeframes to figure out that, hey, we made this decision, it worked, but if we're going to scale it and not have the fail well, these are the things that we actually have to lay down on a foundational level. Take genuinely good care of one another. This is more than just be good people and those things. It's making sure you have folks who understand that the decisions I make impact the rest of my team. So I have a vacation. Am I making sure the team is set up for success in my absence? If it's just those types of things that we just wanted people to treat each other almost like family. And then finally, take responsibility at your company. It's going to vary in terms of the equity that you give to different people, but you want people to have ownership and think of it less as employees and much more thinking about it as owners of the business. In addition to getting this thing started, there is no frickin' way you're going to know everything you need to know. And one of the tools we did to try to augment that is to build an advisor army, is just to surround yourself with people who have either the domain expertise, the vertical expertise, functional expertise, who can help you out. And we mentally, set aside a portion of the equity to actually bring those folks in as we needed them. And one of the things that we looked at is there's different types and levels of advisors. So we had light touch advisors, and these are people that we set the expectation. Can we reach out to you once a month, once a quarter for 20, 30-minute calls on a point thing that we're trying to solve? And the equity tied to that is, hey, if it all goes well, you get a nice car, it's not get a house, right? And then on the other side, you have board level advisors. And these are just a couple of people who are going to be helping you with lots and lots of details within the company and give you a sounding board that you can't have with your board or with your employees. All right, so this is really the cornfield moment. Build it and they will come. Part of being a founder is you have to have massive faith in what you're building, right? And we look at a lot of things where people want to build MVPs and you want to do things, but there's usually years and years and years of effort that are behind that MVP. And so very few products truly are out in the market with very lightweight work. It takes years to build this. So you're going to just need to think about, is this an idea that I want to pursue as I'm going out to get funding? Because you're going to be doing it for a long time. And your mindset is going to have to switch as you bring on employees and external funding. As founders, you have double-digit ownership of these companies, and you'll keep that, a good chunk of that ownership through the fundraising cycle. So a range of valuations can be life-changing for you. But as you bring in investors and employees and more people come in, the thing that you have to have as a successful exit becomes higher and higher and higher for it to be meaningful for those people. So you really need to think that this isn't a quick flip. This is something that you're going to be doing for a decade, right? And so over and above the values, have a mission of what you're trying to achieve with the company and have it be broad enough to where as the tactical things start shifting, it doesn't feel like a pivot, it's just your execution details evolve. So for us, we were trying to make meetings feel more human, bring back that human element into business interactions. And how you get there can obviously vary. Now, while you're trying to keep the team excited and you're working on figuring out product market fit, you personally as the founding team are going to be on an emotional roller coaster ride, but your team needs to be shielded from that. So you're going to want to lean on your co-founders, lean on your advisors, because you have to have that confident face that you're putting to your employees. And so just keep that in mind kind of as you're going through. But there's some things you can do tactically that will keep the team motivated while you're actually trying to get to market. One was just create a learning environment. We brought in a lot of ex-founders and future founders into our company. And the expectation is these people are going to go off and do great things after this journey. And so we wanted to make sure we were arming them with additional skills on that future journey. So those advisors I talked about, we would have them come in and do fireside chats and talk about specific things that they learned and really try to pass on that knowledge. Similarly, no matter what you do, you're going to have a board, right, on anything. And so learning how to present, cycling in your employees so they can actually get board exposure and be able to do the presentations with you is terrific. Similarly, for the whole company, after every board meeting, we would have an all hands and we would present the board deck. So we would take out obviously confidential pieces, but we would present the entire thing to the employees so they knew what we were talking about on a board level. And that just helps with the learning. And then along with your team, the journeys are long and they'll be with you for hopefully all of it, but maybe these folks will go off and do other great things. So talk to them about their hopes and dreams. Make sure you know what their long-term view of what they're trying to do is, so you can help educate them and teach them along the way. Second piece, and nothing beats this in my mind, is user feedback. So even before you launch, get alpha users on your platform, get mechanisms for them to give feedback, get people actually coming to talk to the team about their experience, because we're product and engineers, we're building stuff. We want people to use it. It's not a theoretical thing. You want to actually have people enjoy the product and have value out of it. So it really helps even before you're fully in market. And then finally, setting real stretch goals and timelines. It's easy to, if you don't have a set launch, to have these things take forever and just be in this never-ending tweak cycle. And so put it based on board meetings, set up external events, do things that force your team to actually have hard deadlines so that it's not a permanent cycle of just minor edits along the way. And then as your team starts to hit those stretch goals and start growing in terms of what they're able to do, you can start layering on grants, for folks. So the ownership doesn't have to be static for your team. You can start putting on another tranche of equity on them as they start to grow. So that's all well and good, but all of this takes money. So there's 4 things I like to think about when I'm building the war chest. First, it's a marriage, not a transaction. These investors, particularly your first investors, they're literally with you the whole ride. So you need to think about, who is this person? And is this somebody I want at the table for the next decade? And so when you're fundraising, it's easy to think that you're fundraising from firms, but really you're fundraising from people. Right? You're fundraising from partners. And so you should start doing the diligence around the people you actually want to be part of your company. And so we would do, before we would close a round, we would do call downs with their CEOs. And you don't want to look at just the successes. You want to look, how do these people work when things go wrong? And our lead investor for one of our rounds, when we did the call downs, he had a failed entrepreneur who said, I would lay down in traffic for this person. This is someone who helped place half my team after we just couldn't get product market fit. That's just something where that's the person you want along on your journey. Second is just understanding the VC's position. Talked a little bit about them having their own fundraising cycle, but you want to make sure that the VCs you're talking to are actively investing. So make sure that they have new investments that are coming out so that you're talking to people that have capital to deploy and that they're not mid-fundraising themselves. When you do an investment, if it's possible, know what vintage of fund you're getting invested in by them. If you're at the tail end of their fund cycle, there might be pressure for you a few years down the road to exit to try to get some of that cash back to the LPs versus you're the first investment in a brand new fund round that was done. Third, it all starts years and years before. It's easy for us to be thinking that first round, we're just trying to get this thing closed. How do we do it? After you close your seed round, you have to keep fundraising. You can't just say, okay, I'll just worry about that in 12 months, spin it back up and do the fundraising. You should be thinking in that same give, give, get mindset, just being out there meeting with people and just making sure that, so it's not a cold start every time you have to do fundraising. And then finally, when you think about the math that they're doing to evaluate you, it's not additive, it's multiplicative. So when it can be whatever the formula is you think it is, but for me, it's team times space times something, whether it's TAM or something else. It's not team and. And so if any of those things are below 1, it's going to pull down their interest. If anything are 0, it's going to just kill all interest on what you're doing. So just think about that. And so what we did is we raised a little over 40 million over 3 rounds. And it just gave us the time to actually go and do some heavy investments that we were doing on the data platform. So that's all well and good. I'm sure you guys are wondering what the heck we actually built and what a relationship intelligence thing was. So when we started out, we really wanted to be your virtual chief of staff, just to be an executive's best friend. Our view was there for people who are VP and above, there is so much digital exhaust out there on people that why can't we build an ML engine, AI to go out, comb the web, find that information, and build you the dossiers on the people you're meeting so that it can just be served up to you on a silver platter. There's just no reason for you to have to do all that heavy lifting yourself. So we would build executive dossiers on the people. When we were integrated in with your calendar, we knew who these folks were. And we've all had those meetings where somebody gets added to your 1 o'clock and you have no idea who that is. You just mouse over in our system and we would tell you exactly who this person is, give you some context, and you would just be ready to go. Along those lines, so we had built a database of about 300 million profiles, right? So these are individual people. This is, how do you know that this Amy Chang is your Amy Chang, right? And so we had 300 million people profiles, about 10 million company profiles, and we married that with millions of news feeds. So when any event happened with the person or with their company, we would just serve that up to you, and we could be intelligent about it so that it wasn't keyword searching Amy Chang and you get random things that are happening. It is, in this article, it's talking about an Amy Chang who worked at Google and eBay and McKinsey. Therefore, we know it's the right person, so we can serve you up that content. And it created these amazing moments for networking. And obviously, you want to be where people live. So we were iOS, web, had a Gmail sidebar. But part of networking for some people feels much more like a vitamin, right? And people are hesitant often to pay for things they know they should be doing. It's almost like a gym membership, right? And so getting people over that hurdle to start paying for something when it's a vitamin is different than when it's a pain point. And with a pain point, you're saying, I'm trying to get this job, I'm trying to close this deal. That has its own issues, which is once the deal's closed, how do you make sure they want to keep being a customer of yours? And so we were thinking about this kind of about 4 years in. What can we actually do with this data that no one else can do and actually change what our metrics of success are? Because in this case, it's an individual saying, did I get utility from this thing? And I'm going to be making that decision every time I come up on renewal. And instead, we thought about, we literally have the richest database of decision makers in the world. We have content that doesn't exist in this form anywhere else on the web. What can we do with it? And so we thought about this kind of like a 15-degree turn of looking at it and said, okay, what kind of insights can we generate given that we actually have a really good understanding of these companies that we're looking at? So we could take and do organizational mapping. So not trying to do org charts, but actually saying, we're not really worried about the reporting structure. That's super fluid. It's easy to get it wrong. Let's instead look by function and by seniority. Who are all these people? So that if you're selling into a consulting firm, they want to know for their client services team, who's been here for a really long time? Who came in through acquisition? Who might have in their background been at a competing firm, so they might not be receptive to my ideas or my way of presenting things. And we could do those meta type informational views straight away for you. Similarly, for enterprise customers, you know who you're losing out in the market to. So if someone is from a customer that you've lost and they now join someone who is on one of your accounts, you can look and that should be a flag which says, hey, they just hired a new VP of procurement. They came from this shop. Maybe you should take a look at this account because it could be at risk. And so we could do those types of things. Second, we did a lot of internal tooling and things that were driving the news feed and were driving other elements. So we had done a business prominence index that was a huge list of components that went into it. We wanted to look at what's the career path acceleration, the size of the companies, their social presence, all these different pieces to figure out kind of how prominent are these people in the wider world. And we realized there's a product in there. And so if you're trying to help financial services companies where they need to raise assets under management, $500 billion, how are you going to do that? The only way you're going to do that is looking at what your tier 1 teams do and how do you get your tier 2 people to start looking like your tier 1s. And we could help them with that prospecting to say, okay, in the Chicago area, find me female executives in their 40s, VP and above, who've shown this kind of interest in something. And we could generate those types of lists. And so by changing the metric of who's actually making the decision, we were helping the C-suite do a broader set of decisions so that instead of it being a $20 or $50 a month decision for an individual, it was $1 million pilots, right? And so that was a massive shift. But all the work we did wasn't throwaway because the chief of staff app was the delivery mechanism of this content. So you're looking at these people, you want to know about them. Well, we have an app for that. We can show you the news on them. We can show you all the news spikes on the folks. So what's happening with them? Are they in the press quite a bit? And we could do those same kinds of pieces. So it was a an interesting shift, which really just changed. Once you start getting revenue in the door and getting at that scale, it's super motivating for the team, but it also just really just helps you figure out then how to laser focus on growing the business. So with any of it, you want to have an exit when you're building this stuff. Most things are going to get acquired. I mean, that's just the natural piece of this stuff. And so one of the things you can think about with how to generate interest is, how do you just frame the way you go about business to create these lucky opportunities for things to come in? I've been through selling companies. I've been through actively shopping. It is really hard to unring that bell, because if someone doesn't buy that company, it's going to have the stain that then they tried to sell and couldn't, right? So you want to go and do things that are doing much more inbound interest before you're expressly trying to sell. And so part of creating this drumbeat is, as you get further along in the company, you as the CEOs and founders need to start raising your own profile, because your profile is going to be intricately linked with your company. And it can be uncomfortable. Amy hated doing these kinds of things. She did not want to go out and raise her external profile, but it was important for the business for us to do this. So it's speaking engagements, it's dinners, it's doing all these networking pieces so that your company and your executive team are just everywhere, right? So when people come up in conversation, they're like, oh, I just met this person last week. And you just kind of have that just awareness everywhere. But while you're doing that, you have to have a team that can run things while you're being a publicly facing executive, right? And it's different, and it's hard when you're a product person to then have to go spend much more time outside. If your go-to-market is more enterprise focused, then your clients are potential acquirers, right? And so there's always that sense that you want to give the end users just this golden experience so that you're lighting their imagination on fire on what they could do with this asset if it was theirs. And similarly, for whatever your go-to-market is, you can do the same thing with partnership discussions, right? So as you're feeling things out and looking at go-to-market, some of these might be natural people that you want to merge with down the line. So for us, Cisco, when they acquired us, they were an enterprise customer of ours. Chuck Robbins, the CEO, is an avid user of our, he'd been using us for years. And then Amy was on the board as well. So there was multiple years of them looking at us and thinking about, well, what would we do if we brought this set of people into Cisco, and what could we do with it? So like anything, it's easy to show a super small time frame where it's like, hey, the deal happened like that, but it didn't. It was years before the deal happened. But the actual mechanics were very fast. So it was crazy. So we started real negotiations in earnest Thursday morning, 8 a.m. We did about 21 hours of back and forth getting to terms and just trying to figure out what the dollar value was going to be for this. So about 5 in the morning, finally nailed it, got a couple hours of sleep, and then diligence started. And this is where they're looking at your tech stack, looking at your IP, and there's things that you can do all along the way so that you just spend a couple of minutes a week doing things, and it will save you on the back end. So make sure that when you're looking at the libraries you're pulling into your service, when you're looking at the different tooling you're using, check the licensing. Make sure you're not doing something that's foundational to what you're building that you're not allowed to commercialize on top, or that you're using a library that is expressly forbidden for what you're doing. So just make sure you have all of that truly lined up. Similarly, all the legal, make sure all of your employees have their documents signed and you've got them living in a house, like living in a data warehouse for things. We just treated our file system like we were going to get fundraising event at any time, or we were going to have an exit at any time. So you just keep things super clean. So it's just not a nightmare, because we did all of this over a weekend. And while you're doing the diligence, you have to be hammering out the merger agreement. So what does this actually say in terms of taking terms? How do I turn in this giant doc that's actually how we're going to exit this thing? And you have to place your team while you're doing this. So whatever company buys you, they're going to have leveling. So you've got to get resumes and all the different pieces to make the case for why certain people should be leveled in a certain way and be compensated in a certain way once they get into the company. So it's crazy. And then on that Monday, we already had a board meeting scheduled. And so we were able to announce that as part of our usual debriefs after all hands. And then the next day we announced that not only the acquisition, but also that Amy was going to be taking over as the head of the business unit that was acquiring us. So a couple of things to think about coming out of this is, as the founder, you're going to have to decide, when do you bring your team into these decisions, right? When do you bring them into the diligence process? Because it's super demotivating. Not all deals happen. So what you don't want to do is have people super excited about the exit. They start thinking about the future and getting a house and doing all these life-changing things, and then the deal doesn't happen, right? And so we kept the cone very tight, and it was really only when we started getting into certainty that we started bringing in, you know, more folks into that cone. The second one is, this is only an event. It's not the end of the journey. And I think a lot of us, we just think, great, I build a startup, I sell it, I go off and I do my next thing, and I do that. But the company is buying you, your team, the asset, and they want to do something with it. So it's super important to think about the fact that you're most likely going to have a revest. So some portion of your equity is going to go into a pot and then vest back out to you over time while you're there. Your team, same thing. Anyone who's named as a key person, they're going to want to keep kind of in the company. So just know that this is something you need to factor into your excitement about the idea and the space that you're working on, because it's got time on the back end too, right? So you just need to make sure that you're thinking through the full length of this journey. So with that, I'm pretty easy to track down. So outside of the Q&A, if you guys want to ping me, I'm just Ryan McDonough on LinkedIn and _ Ryan McDonough on Twitter. And then obviously I got to show some of the requisite, you know, a lot of fun. We made sure we had, you know, a lot of humor kind of in our offices that we celebrated. This was Matthias when he got engaged. You know, making sure that we just had a lot of fun, because it is a fun journey. It's tiring, but you have a great time doing it. All right. So with that, let's open it up to Q&A. Then Eileen, I'm not sure how you guys wanted to serve up questions here, if they're going to be in chat or where I should look.
Yeah, if people want to raise their hand, I can call on them, or if they want to post in the chat, me or Eileen can read them. Nathan, I see you have a hand raised.
I do. Hey, Ryan, this is Nathan Johnson from Avec. Number one, thank you. that was very informative across the board. So much appreciated for bringing that knowledge to the group. And your end pictures there for the fun journey actually kind of answered a little bit of my question. But you know, when you highlighted your values specifically around, you know, no assholes. Obviously, nobody wants that in their business. But did you guys have some sort of structure in place when you were building more or less the founding team, the first couple of employees that came on? How did you kind of vet candidates to make sure that no assholes were getting into the organization?
Yeah, I think that just in general, you always need the back channel, right? So when somebody gives you a list of references, great, but also we have our network. So you should make sure you do your own diligence to talk to other people who aren't just the ones who are listed on that piece. But also, we do make mistakes. So you have to be willing to let that person go if they're a bad cultural fit. It's not always realistic to say that I'm going to have everyone who starts with me on this journey is going to make it all the way through. And so it is tough, right? We have to do it. But it's meeting people in person, it's having those discussions with folks, and it's doing the back channels.
Awesome. Thanks.
Morgan?
Yeah, Ryan, thanks for your time. I'm curious to know from you when you made a decision for a lot of external resources, so HR, legal, kind of when do you make those decisions for how big your company is?
So I had the good fortune or not good fortune to have done a lot of this before, and having managed this kind of at previous companies. So I did a lot of this stuff in-house originally. Things that now I would have done is I absolutely would have outsourced the cap table. I mean, just sign up for Carta. I mean, there's no reason. We were doing that through our lawyers, and the amount of back and forth and effort you have to take to make sure that thing's clean and all the docs, just do Carta. Same thing with payroll and all the other kinds of things, which is just get them kind of out there. My bias was to try to keep everything within one legal firm. So I was trying to find a firm to where I could have them handle lots of various issues. It's expensive for certain things, like you don't necessarily want to do IP stuff through a high-end law firm, but it really helps for diligence on the end. because then it's all integrated and there's no coordination problems, all those kinds of pieces. But yeah, I mean, outsource all of the basic stuff. I mean, I'd say for me, even though titling CFO is maybe 30% of my time, the rest of the time you're doing ops work, right? You're building the data platform, you're trying to figure out how this thing's all going to work, facilities, everything else. But yeah, there's so many good services out there. It's worth just doing the quick math and saying, if this saves me 5 hours a week, 1 hour a week, is it worth it? And probably it's going to be yes. So.
Makes sense. Thanks.
I also have a question, Ryan. Yeah, again, thanks so much for coming here. Were there any major competitors at the in the early days of your startup? And if yes, how did you get ahead of them? If no, were you afraid that, hey, maybe there wasn't big of a market in this space?
Yeah, absolutely. There's competitive, and it's the classic direct competitors, but also substitutes, right? Because there's different ways to get to the same solution. So a lot of people naturally said, well, what about LinkedIn? This thing exists that's out there. And LinkedIn is terrific for what it's looking to achieve. I mean, well, LinkedIn profiles, and we all do those pieces. But for us, it was missing a little bit of the market, which is the VP and above. Because there's a lot of people who just don't use LinkedIn once you get to a certain place in your career. I think it was something on the order of only 54% of public company CEOs have LinkedIn pages, right? I mean, they don't care, right? And so we definitely had the LinkedIn piece for part of the market. And since you can't use LinkedIn's data, it necessitated us to think about where would you go on it. And so that's where we started realizing all the digital exhaust for folks kind of on the VP and above. But at the time, there was lots of companies. Companies called Refresh. There was Reported back in the day, Zobni. There was a lot of people who were trying to help put information in front to you. The big piece for us was just thinking, well, given that competitive space, how do we build walls around to where it's unique things that no one else can do, right? And so we made a very conscious decision to not go into gray area on data usage, because a lot of our competitors were using, scraping things they shouldn't have been scraping and doing those kinds of pieces. And so we did the double down of how much money it would take to build this platform, and it was going to be expensive. I mean, building this whole crawling infrastructure gives you insanely high Amazon bills, right? I mean, it's expensive. The other piece is just as things pop up, the advisor army is terrific for keeping eyes and ears on things, right? Because they get people approaching them all the time. So they'll see companies that aren't on your radar who are trying to do something similar. So they're terrific for helping on that. Similarly, your investors are always going to be bringing in, ideas of, well, what are you going to do to be, to beat this challenge? So you're definitely not going to lack in competitors, right? And so we didn't feel like we were missing anything or realizing like, oh no, there's no competitors in this space. What do they know that we don't know, right? But it is tough, right? And then here I can see there's a question in the chat, which is the number of employees at a company at exit. So we were around 40 people when we exited. We were split between 2 offices. So we were in Los Altos primarily for product and eng, and then our customer success folks were up in Portland. And so we would fly people back and forth. And in terms of the no a-holes and keeping people together, we would always have people fly down before we would hire them, right? Just to make sure that we were working as one team. And then in terms of the way that evolved over time, it's really is trying to get those first engineers to help build this thing. Our CTO had amazing, it's one of the smartest people I've ever met, right? But you still need more people to help build all this stuff, right? And so we started out and it was eng folks who were looking at and bringing in designers and doing all the pieces we couldn't do as an exec team.
I have a question, Ryan. You talked a lot about the importance of culture, and you obviously put a lot of effort and emphasis in building a good culture within your organization. How did that change, or how did you fight to keep that culture when you were acquired by another company? Did you have to adapt to their style of leadership? Did you have to keep what you want, keep how you had been doing it? How did that kind of work?
Yeah, there's 2 schools of thought when you're acquiring an asset, which is, do I want to keep that thing as a separate DU and a separate unit, or do I want to start integrating this more into the company? And so in our case for Cisco, since Amy was taking over the business unit, she went from the 40 of us to 5,000 and later 6,000 people kind of in her org. So she couldn't oversee a company anymore, right? I mean, that just wouldn't make sense. So then it went under kind of, another set of leadership folks still within her org. And some of the core team still stayed at our Los Altos headquarters, but a chunk of the team then moved into just being co-located at Cisco, right? And then some of them went off to go lead other teams within the organization. So I think it's just natural to expect that it's going to break apart over time because they're pulling you in because they want your talent and they don't necessarily want your talent siloed. If it's a product to where it makes sense to keep it siloed, obviously that's different. But I think you're going to have to integrate and adapt to the company that buys you.
Awesome, thank you.
I also have a question around fundraising because I know some of our the teams in our cohort are getting ready to that stage, getting their first check from investors. Did you get to had the fortune to be picky with investors? Like, who do I take the money from? How did that decision go?
Yeah, and I think there's a benefit to being older when you're doing a startup, just because you have a broader network, and a lot of these might even be people you've known over the years. So some of this advice or our experiences geared more towards that. I mean, we were mid to late 30s when we started a company, right? So but we really targeted who we wanted to go talk to. So we, instead of doing let me go meet with 50 different VCs, it was, let me look at the universe and figure out who would have more of a propensity for what we were looking to do. So we knew the space we were going after was very sales specific. We knew that it was kind of prosumer, so it wasn't fully enterprise, but it was definitely not a direct consumer play. So we looked through their portfolio companies to go see, well, what are people investing in? Do they show an interest in this? Is there a parallel kind of other investment that they've done in a space or an adjacent space? So then we were more targeted. So we ended up just going after a handful of people to try to meet with. And so it wasn't so much that you get to just throw it all out there and you get all this interest and then you pick. It was being picky before you went out there, right? Because it changes the likelihood of success. So. But it's hard when people are going to say no. I mean, and they're going to say no to your thing. So. All right, well, I think we're coming up on time on my stuff. There's probably room for one or two more questions, but if not, you guys can always reach out to me on LinkedIn, Twitter. Good luck on your journey.
I'm not sure if anyone else has questions, but a final question for Ryan. What's your next step, or now that this super successful startup acquired by Cisco for so much money, like what are you trying to do next chapter in life?
So right now, so my child's 13 and has been an amazing part of this journey. Right? He used to come to the office. It was just saw this whole journey, but now we can actually take a little bit of a pause between now and college to just focus on advising, board work, investing, but not doing operating roles for a while. Because when he goes off to college, we're still going to be in our 40s, right? And careers are long. So it's being able to actually just take a bit of this window and take a bit of a breather. And then in between major events, I've always taken a year off, right? So it's, because you get pretty burned especially on the CFO, it's exhausting to go through building up to the sale, get the exit, get the integration. And so you just feel like, oh, I had to take a little bit of a break.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Thank you so much, Ryan, for coming here. We really appreciate your support for our program. Yeah.
Excellent. And, with your pitches, everybody.
Yeah, I think there are people who have questions. Feel free to reach out to Ryan on LinkedIn or via email directly. I'm sure he's happy to talk to you. Yeah, thanks you. Thanks, everybody. Bye, Ryan.
Bye.
Take care. All right, I'm going to take over again. All right, our judges are going to be rolling in the next 2 or 3 minutes or so. So we'll give it a quick bathroom break if everyone wants to come back In about 3 minutes, we'll start introducing our judges, and we will start presentations after we introduce our judges.
Hey everyone, can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, Andrew. We're giving everyone a quick second to use the restroom. We're a little bit ahead of schedule, and then we'll have Jake introduce our judges, and they will start our pitches after that.
Excellent.
Thanks for showing up. We're looking forward to it.
You bet, should be fun. Looking forward to it.
All right, everybody. We are going to kick off with intros. We are fortunate to be welcomed here by 5 outstanding judges, and we'll give a quick bio on each and then dive into the pitches. So starting off with Andrew Harper is a partner at Sidley Austin. He provides strategic counseling to companies ranging from newly formed startup teams to mature late-stage private companies on matters spanning the entire corporate lifecycle, including pre-incorporation planning, founder issues, general corporate counseling, venture capital financings, SPAC transactions, mergers and acquisitions. He also regularly represents venture capital firms, strategic investors, and private equity investors on their investments in emerging companies. Andrew has represented many high-profile companies from early stages through unicorn financings, IPOs, and multi-billion-dollar exits. He leverages his expertise as a general counsel of a venture-backed company to deeply understand entrepreneurs, anticipate their business and legal needs, and pragmatically achieve their goals. Andrew has a true passion for working with founders and new companies. He collaborates often with accelerators, including Y Combinator and others, and represents many of their portfolio companies. Matt Kiermaier is a partner at Perkins Coie. He represents emerging technology companies and the investors who fund them across a range of industries, including software, educational technology, digital media, social media, AI systems, robotics, and life sciences. Active in the technology and investment communities in Silicon Valley and the East Coast, Matt often works with emerging companies as their outside general counsel, managing legal, financial, and operational issues, from formation in angel and venture capital investment through exit. I'm getting notes of staticky audio. Let me see if I can adjust. Is that working at all? I'll get through Matt, and if it's not working, maybe someone jump in and can read the rest of the bio so we can have this done clearly. Matt has more than 30 years of experience in the emerging company and venture capital ecosystem, including numerous seed and venture financings for technology and life sciences companies. Matt also has significant experience guiding clients to securities offerings and mergers and acquisitions. As part of his commitment to gender equality, Matt sits on the advisory board of ASTIA, which is a nonprofit organization that invests in companies with women in positions of equity and influence. Matt is a mentor of the Lester Center for Entrepreneurship at the High School of Business and a Sky Advisor at Skydeck, the unique accelerator at UC Berkeley. Matt is also an adjunct professor at the Integrated Innovation Institute at Carnegie Mellon University. I'm going to pass along to a colleague who has better audio than me.
Hey, thank you, Jake. Thank you for the introduction. Sorry about your mic. We'll go on to the next two judges that we have joining us today. Jed Katz, he's a Javelin Venture Partners. He's the managing director of Javelin Venture Partners, which he co-founded in 2009. One of the true pioneers of online commerce, Jed has spent his career developing, advising, and investing in early stage technology ventures, including founding 4 companies. He is currently on the boards of Thumbtack, Smart Asset, HiArc, KidPass, and Linkia as a board observer for Masterclass and Homeward, and led the investment in Carbon Health. Prior to forming Javelin Venture Partners, Jed was a managing director of DFJ Gotham Ventures in New York. Prior to DFJ Gotham, Jed was the COO of YamCon, the developer of the highly acclaimed Sky Scout, one of the best-selling astronomy products of all time. Prior to YamCon, Jed was the founder and COO of RentNet, the internet's first rental and relocation guide, which launched disruptive technology solutions that revolutionized the way real estate-related advertising was done. Jed later used RentNet as the foundation for the formation of Move.com, one of the internet's largest real estate sites. Move.com was ultimately acquired by HomeStore. Jed holds a BA in business economics from UCLA and an MBA from the Haas School of Business at the University of California, Berkeley, where he was awarded the Price Fellowship from the Lester Center for Entrepreneurship and Innovation. Our 4th judge is Sam Louie from Techstars. Sam is the Global Startup Pipeline Coordinator at Techstars, where she sources companies, manages leads, and supports founders applying to Techstars programs. Previously, she worked on building a space-as-a-service company at a startup studio. She also spent time at NASA's Jet Propulsion Laboratory, a few VC firms, and a Techstars startup in the media space. She graduated from Stanford, where she studied engineering, physics, and theater. And then moving on, our 5th and final judge is Brandon Andrews at Inexorable. Brandon Andrews is a co-founder of Gauge, an AI-driven mobile market research platform connecting brands to consumers and influencers to identify opportunities and avoid mistakes. As senior consultant at Values Partnerships, he leads the company's work on technology and entrepreneurship, including leading a nationwide casting tour focused on bringing more diverse ideas and voices to ABC's Shark Tank and building inclusive ecosystems. Named a Global Innovation Fellow by the U.S. Department of State, he has traveled the world speaking and hosting events on entrepreneurship and innovation. He is chairman of the DC Commission on National and Community Service. A former fashion model, he serves on the DC Commission on Fashion, Arts, and Events, and works with fashion and beauty entrepreneurs. He provides commentary on policy, politics, business, and tech on TV, radio, and the web. A former Division I track athlete, Brandon is a graduate of Oral Roberts University. So please give me a round of applause as we welcome all of our judges. Thank you all for joining us today. We really do appreciate you coming out to observe these pitches. And we hope that you have a great time and look forward to it. You all should have received your judging criteria in your email. Just send me a ping in the chat if you haven't gotten that yet. The format, just as a reminder, each startup will pitch for 5 minutes. And then after their 5-minute pitch, you as the judges will have 5 minutes to ask them questions. So feel free to ask them anything. The teams have been practicing for a while, and I think they're all happy and eager to share a little bit about their business model. Moving on, I'll pass it over. Hold on one sec. Just lost my presentation. Where did that go? Oh, there it is.
While Graham is setting up, thanks Graham and Jake for for that. That was really great. Welcome, judges. And here's the moment we've been waiting for. As a reminder, as Graham said, each of the startup will have 5 minutes and a 5 minutes Q&A. There are 10 startups total, and we are breaking down into 2 segments, 5 startups first, and then we'll take a 10 minutes break, and then we'll have the second set. And with that, I have the honor of introducing our first startup, Clever.fm. Clever, are you guys ready?
Yep.
Go for it.
All right. Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us today. We are Clever, a podcast app that finally helps creators succeed. My name is Sean Lee, and I'm a creator and entrepreneur. It all started in 2009. I'm in an auto shop to get my headlight replaced. It's a $30 bulb, but $100 in labor. My buddy and I think, well, we could probably just do this ourselves. So we figure it out, decide to make a video to show others how to do it, then just sits on a website. We're trying to figure out how to get this thing out there, to get found. And here comes a small platform called YouTube, and the video takes off. We end up creating over 300 videos, and with YouTube, we turn them into 2 successful e-commerce companies. I become obsessed with helping creators thrive on their ideas. And in 2012, I built a co-working space for creators in downtown LA. And in 2018, I get into podcasts at Berkeley Haas. And the next year after that, I launched alumni.fm to give creators the power to make their own podcasts. During my podcasting journey, I realized something. While the barrier to entry is low, the barrier to success is extremely high. Today, podcast creators are not being heard, and nothing illustrates this bottleneck better than this graph. You know, YouTube and podcasts have both started around 2005, yet YouTube has almost 40 million channels, while podcasting only has 2 million. Even Twitch, started around 2012, has more. And the valuation of each of these platforms reflects the number of creators they support. So it's time to enable podcast creators, and Clever will redefine podcasting and usher in the next 40 million creators. We talked to over 100 podcast hosts to understand what's missing, and we realized the podcast experience today is still like listening to a Walkman, a complete one-way listening experience, like with this guy. You know, as a podcaster, I spend hours creating a podcast only to feel like I'm broadcasting to an invisible audience. But it's not just me. Even people from top networks like TED have the same problem. They just don't know who they actually reached. And so 3 things kept coming up in our customer interviews. Hosts all need more visibility because right now the same top shows get recommended year over year. And for them to sustain their craft, they need better monetization. And lastly, they need more listener engagement because they need to understand who's listening. And so here's a demo of some features we built over the past 2 months to help with discovery, transaction, and interaction. As you can see, I can quickly browse episodes by tags, even within a show. And next, if I hear the host mention a book or an article that I'm interested in, I can just click on it. Lastly, I can highlight and transcribe any aha moments, even add in my own notes. And just like Instagram, Clever allows users to search and subscribe by hashtags. Similar to any mobile game, you can transact in-app. And lastly, like Medium or Kindle, you can highlight and share your favorite moments. And all these small interactions feed into actionable insights for the hosts. For example, hosts can see how their listeners discover their podcast, which books or courses listeners purchased. They can even surface popular highlights and make trailers and highlight reels out of them. And this leads to our business model. We make money when creators make money. We do that by providing in-depth data and in-app transactions. We'll even have an ad marketplace because we'll have better ad attribution. And all this is to say that there's a huge market opportunity to help creators succeed. The podcast market is projected to be $60 billion by 2025. And conservatively, if we're looking to capture only 10% of that, that's $6 billion. This is based on increased ad spend driven by better ad attribution and in-app purchases. And so everyone's probably wondering, why aren't existing players doing this? Well, no one is looking at the ecosystem holistically, and more importantly, through the creator lens. Everyone else is too narrowly focused on single feature apps or making podcasts more exclusive and prohibitive. To truly deliver a 10x better experience, we need the intersection of all 3. Enter the Clever team. I'm a 3x founder focused in the consumer space. Serene is a 2X early startup engineer focused on validating and delivering robust products. And our advisors include Paulina and Matt, individuals from top universities. We're looking to raise $1 million from an 18-month runway to further develop our product and acquire 1,000 true fans. We're targeting an MRR of 50K by month 9. And lastly, we're looking for strategic advisors in the media entertainment space to help us accelerate our partnerships. We thank you for listening to this episode of Clever. If you have any questions, please send them our way.
Thank you, Sean. That was great. Now we'll turn it over to the judges.
Hey, Sean, I'll go first. How are you? Give you a quick one. So what gets you out of the noise and what gets you noticed among all these podcasters, all these users? How do you get that traction and go climbing?
Right. And so what we're looking to target is basically the majority of hosts that are not being serviced by Spotify or Apple. Right. When we look at Apple or Spotify, they're going after this, exclusive content strategy, spending hundreds of millions of dollars on Joe Rogan's and the likes. Right. What is their incentive to help true creators when they're spending that kind of money? And so our focus is to target hosts that have very engaged communities and partner with them. That's one way.
Great. Thank you.
Sean, what do you think is the hardest thing to copy here?
The hardest thing to copy is basically getting this community hook, as we call it, getting people really engaged with the content and getting that data, right, of where people are engaging. Does that answer it, Andrew? I mean, there's a bunch of things on our roadmap. I just don't want to go into feature creep to describe them, but there's a lot of things that we're thinking about building to basically hook the users. And I say this on both ends, both the listeners and the hosts, because when you look at the existing strategies for helping creators, it's around subscriptions, right? It's either this Spotify model of, hey, let's give you $15 and you distribute it to creators however you like, or what Apple did last week, copying Substack and saying, hey, you know what, let's individually donate and subscribe to individual hosts. There's got to be a better way in between. And so when we're looking at Twitch, for example, tokenization is a great way to pay creators. Why not pay creators based on how you engage with them, right? Every highlight, every bookmark, every share, you put in $20 and every one of those actions actually act as a donation to the creator that you support. And basically, we want to create this virtuous ecosystem to help support that.
So I had a quick one. I think it follows up on an earlier question, just to dig in a little more. Who do you see as your target your first target demographic, and who do you envision as the first set of power users for your product that you want to go after? Podcast is a very broad category and touches on a lot of things. So just interested to hear a little more detail there.
Yeah, absolutely. So they are what we call, from the audience perspective, they're second brainers. They're people that are obsessed about Notion, Evernote, capturing, organizing, storing notes, right? They use Readwise, they use Pocket or Instapaper to capture everything else on the web. What they're lacking in the podcasting space is a tool for that. And these people, going back to the host side, they listen to a very specific category of hosts. People like Tim Ferriss, right? Lex Friedman, people that they're learning from in these podcasts.
Great. Thanks.
Hey, this is Brandon. You mentioned some new engagement metrics as a different way to reward content creators for engagement on the platform. Do you have a plan to translate those new ways to capture engagement into ad offerings eventually on the platform, or is that not part of the roadmap for you?
Absolutely. I mean, once we know more how people are engaging, this actually builds into ad attribution, right? Right now, how advertising works and why it's just crippled and bottlenecked at only $1 billion versus, radio's at 18 billion is that there's close to no ad attribution, right? Hosts are still reading URLs expecting to click on Casper.com/Tim Ferriss, right? Or type that in. And so having a more engaged platform will definitely add to that and support that.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of positive potential there. Good to hear that you're looking to take advantage of that and looking forward to seeing where it goes.
We actually have a breakdown of that. We're looking to take, of the ad marketplace, we're looking to take a 30% cut.
Philosophically, if 5 years from now, do you think most of the podcasting revenue is going to come from subscription or from ads in the US?
I think it's going to come from what I described earlier, just listener support. Looking at Twitch, people buying bits, right, and supporting hosts in micro donations, not locked into monthly subscriptions of $5 or $10 and having to go in and think about, do I want to cancel this host, right, or not? It's not a very efficient model, in my opinion. So it's somewhere in between.
Okay.
Thank you, Sean, and thank you, judges. So that was all the time we have for Q&A.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Well, next up, I have the pleasure of introducing Coco cards. Coco card, are you guys ready?
Yes. All right. Okay, so hi, I'm Derek from Coco Card. Our team is currently in Singapore where it's 5 in the morning, so hopefully you guys are much more awake than we are. So last year during the pandemic, I lost my job. And like many people, I started a hustle online. I wanted to sell cheesecakes, but then I realized for small businesses like mine, there's surprisingly no e-commerce platform out there. And it's not just me, there's a whole ecosystem of micro businesses that's booming from the pandemic, and they are here to stay. So that's when we came up with Coco Card. At Coco Card, we help independent sellers start selling online in 1 minute. To put it in perspective, there's a staggering 97% of all businesses in the world are currently not online. That 97% is our target market. These are mainly micro businesses that sell things like homemade cakes, handmade jewelry, craft beers, or even tennis lessons. And these businesses, they don't need a professional website. They just want a quick and easy solution to sell online. And the amazing thing about micro businesses is that they are by far the fastest growing segment among all businesses. They are largely underserved by existing software companies. In fact, most of our merchants were previously using WhatsApp, Google Forms, or even emails to take orders. We are currently serving a market worth $35 billion and growing rapidly. E-commerce grew by 40% last year, being accelerated by the pandemic. This growth is expected to continue. So we decided to build Coco Card to solve this problem, and we had a few principles in mind. Number one is that it would not take more than 3 minutes to start your own business online. Number two, there will be no learning curve. It will be so simple that your grandma could use it. And number three, there will be no code required and even no design required. So you can think of it as we are as powerful as Shopify, but as easy as Google Forms. We launched about 6 months ago, and we have amazing traction with about $800,000 GMV per month, and we are growing about 50% month over month with zero marketing spend. As of today, we have onboarded over 4,000 shops in 29 countries, including Singapore, Indonesia, Australia, Morocco, Germany, and the US. In fact, we already have merchants in 5 continents, and we have achieved all this while having a platform in only English. So as you can imagine, we are desperately translating our website right now. Our business model operates on a freemium model. It's completely free to sign up, and paid plans start from as low as $5 a month up to $299 a month. We also charge a 0.5% of all payments processed by us. Today, we're doing about $60,000 in ARR. Now, what really sets us apart from the competition is our ease of use and how localized we are. unlike many platforms, we don't require merchants to only accept credit cards. For example, in the US, we support Venmo. In Bangladesh, we support Bcash. Our largest competitor is Shopify, but instead of taking 1 or 2 weeks to create an online store, it takes 1 minute on our platform. And our customers rave about us. These are real testimonials from our real users. Our team is entirely from UC Berkeley. There's myself, Z, and Shannon. We are all technical founders with an engineering background. And we previously worked at top tech companies like Dropbox and Figma. And we have also been accepted into Y Combinator for the upcoming batch. So that's pretty exciting. This is our roadmap. And we are hoping that with the funding from launch, we can accelerate our growth to $1 million in ARR by the end of the year. And we will do this by, first of all, translating our platform for the global market and also hire staff in our largest developing markets, where these funds will go a long way in helping us. In conclusion, CocoCard is our vision for the future of e-commerce. In the past 15 years, there has been traditional platforms that serve the needs for large companies like Zara and Home Depot. But in the next 10 years, CocoCard will serve the needs for the hundreds of millions of businesses around the world. You can try us out at cococard.co. Thank you.
Thank you, Derek, and thank you very much for joining us from Singapore. Now I'll turn it over to the judges.
Derek, I applaud the beautiful simplicity of your product, but what is unique and defensible about what you are doing that will enable you to battle competitors who surely will see that massive unserved market?
Yes. So I think the first thing that we notice in e-commerce is that generally, when you look at Amazon and Airbnb, the product is pretty simple, but what they have is a network effect. In fact, 95% of our growth of our signups are purely organic. So what we found is that when we hit a certain critical mass in each market, the organics just take off. Now that is not easy to replicate. The second thing are the integrations, right? Right now, integrating with delivery services, payment services, these are things that are also very difficult to replicate that we currently have in a lot of different markets.
Thank you.
Derek, I thought that was great. What have you had? Have you had a churn yet with any of your customers?
Yes, in fact, there was one problem that we actually fixed last month. Well, I can give you some numbers. In the month of February, we had a 12% churn, which I thought was quite high, because if you grow by like 50%, if you lose 12%, it doesn't really, it's not that great. We found out that most of the churn was basically people, most people pay around the world. When they pay something in US dollars, they use prepaid cards. So their credit cards had not enough money. So how we fixed this was that we sent out reminders to top up their credit card. Our churn dropped from 12% to 4%. And this remaining 4%, we have also talked to them on why are you guys, churning? But more often than not, it's because businesses are difficult and a good number of them do stop business after a while. They start for a while, for 3 months, doesn't work out, and they close shop. But that's about 4% of our current, that's our churn currently at 4%.
Hey, Derek, great job, and thanks for getting up early to join us today. 2 questions, but very much so related. One, what's the #1 friction point that you've seen or heard your customers articulate that's keeping them from being able to sell in the first place? And then 2, are there any other friction points or any other barriers to entry that your platform isn't addressing now, but that you want to address in your roadmap?
Right. So generally, for most users, when we talk to them, I think the first pain point they have, it's obviously the sales. We have merchants that barely make a few $100s a month, which for some of them is fine because it's just a hobby for them. we have merchants. Our largest merchant right now makes about 90 grand a month on our platform. That's in US dollars. And she started from just selling something from a kitchen, and now she is making 90 grand a month. So yeah, so I think that's the first thing, that people always want to try to make more sales. We are not a marketplace. So unlike, like Uber Eats or DoorDash or one of these services where they bring you the traffic, we are more like Shopify. We give you the platform, but you have to advertise yourselves on your Instagram, on your Facebook. So I think for some people that comes very natural to them. They're able to, get 20,000, 30,000 followers and get a good amount of sales. Some people start off, they really struggle, and that's why their business closed. I think that's one of the main problems.
Derek, what do the paid plans get you? I don't think you spoke to that.
Sure. So we basically charge based on the volume of sales that you make. We have a freemium model up to 750 US dollars a month in sales. You're allowed to use the platform for free. If you make above 750 US dollars a month, you have to at a minimum pay $5. In unlocks additional features like promo codes, like analytics, delivery services. Now, the more sales that you make, we have different tiers, like cut off at 2,005, 5,000, 8,000, and so on. The more you pay. So at the very highest end, we have the merchant that's paying us $299. You get the same features, but it's just depending on the sales volume that you have.
Thank you.
And how does the model compare to what competitors charge?
Okay, so obviously the biggest right now is Shopify, by far the biggest. Their most basic plan starts at $29 a month. I think for a lot of small businesses that are just starting off, I think that in fact is the first friction point for Shopify, that most people don't even want to start the business, because before you even make a single dollar, you are already investing money into setting listing up. If we look at other services like Squarespace with e-commerce is $49 a month, and most of other services like Magento, those are enterprise level software. So the reason why we price our lowest tier, first of all, we're free at the very lowest end. And even so, if you do quite well, you make above $750, we charge you $5, and that is really affordable. In fact, our pricing plan is called Buy Us a Coffee, because we don't want people to feel like, you're spending too much to start your business. $5 is what the coffee costs. It will go to supporting our project. But once you get really big, you're making a few $1,000s a month. That's when we start charging you Shopify kind of prices, $29 a month, $49 a month, and so on.
Thank you very much, Derek, and thank you very much, judges.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I will move on to the next startup. Next startup is Communly. Are you guys ready?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Nice. Give me a sec, sorry. Is this screen moving? Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you, and I saw the screen move.
Thanks, cool. Okay, so I'm gonna start.
Whenever you're ready.
Okay, nice. Right. Hi, we are Communly. We are building communication assistance software that instantly make you a better listener. I have ADHD. My biggest symptom is impulsive speech, which means you keep talking and you never listen, and that drives people crazy. Because my parents have the same symptom, and we are fighting a lot, my family was on the verge of divorce and estrangement at the same time. My family was broken. ADHD diagnosis increased 40% in the past 8 years, and there are 10 million adults with ADHD in US, and the treatment costs $2,200 per year. And it's $10 billion market in US alone and growing really fast because of the expense. But still, people with ADHD experience 3 times more family communication issue than people without it. The biggest reason for divorce and family estrangement is failed communication, and so many of them suffer from ADHD. 40 million people in US are suffering just like my family. I wanted to save my family, so I learned listening skill and I became a professional family counselor. And I started business to teach listening skill to family, but it didn't go well. And we realized we cannot help them with one thing, application. Your counselor can teach you skills, but they cannot be there next to you when you're having a problem. The real conversation exposes your ego and impulsivity, and you have to face them all alone. That is painfully difficult. And that's why we built Comini. Comini is the first ever real-time intervention in your conversation. It's like Grammarly that works for real-time conversation. It listens to your conversation and gives you real-time feedback on it, so you can improve your communication real-time. The requirements to be a better listener is talk less and encourage the other person to talk more. And accordingly, Comini has 2 functionalities. Comini 1 helps you to talk. It shows you how much you talk real time, so you can become more self-conscious and adjust your communication real time. And after the conversation is over, it tells you what part you should go back and study. It also gives you detailed feedback for each part based on sentiment and semantic analysis on your speech. Comini 2 helps you facilitate the conversation by right responses. It listens to what your partner says, generate a list of responses you can use in the conversation so you can let them talk more. Our closed beta prototype for Comini 1 is already reducing users' talking time by 12%. If we charge $10 per month and acquire 3% of ADHD sufferers in US, it's $36 million yearly revenue. And helping people with divorce and estrangement problem will give us $180 million. We can, of course, help more prevalent family communication issues like conflict between parents and children. And outside family matter is much bigger market for communication assistance, which will give us $1.5 billion of yearly revenue. And they are also growing really fast. And expanding to other English-speaking countries will double the revenue. There are 2 ways to reach to our target customers. 1, they belong to ADHD communities. We have successfully engaged thousands of our target customers in Facebook group. On counselors referral, our target customers are seeing counselors, and those counselors want to recommend our service to their clients. We can onboard 10,000 users from these 2 channels in this year. And later, we partner with counseling organizations to access more counselors and create more referral. And we can also help business to improve employee retention because we can improve managers' communication with their staff. We started the beta testing with a global company called Babla, and one of their executives became our advisor and investor. And finally, Facebook ad. Every major player with this similar target customer uses Facebook to reach million users. We will follow their path. We are a technical founder with expertise in the field. I'm a third-time founder and a professional family counselor. And I used to run counseling provider business, and I helped over 100 families to improve their communication. Our CTO, Umang, has led AI-related project at multiple renowned companies. And Abhijit is former research fellow and award winner at Caltech. We have the technology and expertise to create the best solution in the field. Right now, we are looking to meet leaders of psychology organization and psychology professor and any managers with employee retention problem. We want to help people to rescue their most important relationship. What else can be more important in your life? It's not about communication, it's about the meaning of your life. We hope to get your support so we can help everyone to bond with their loved one again. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Hideyoshi. I believe you're also joining us from an international location, so thanks for joining us today. All right, I'll turn it over to the judges.
I think it's great that you're trying to solve some of these problems. As a father of a son that has ADHD, I know firsthand the communication issues that come up. This strikes me as both a pretty large behavior change, and something that the person that has ADHD has to want to use in order for it to be effective. I'm curious about the beta group you have, if people have already started using this and what you're learning from their behavior.
Thank you so much for the question. So we are targeting first adult with ADHD. And if they reach like 25, 30 years old, they are part of society and they start experiencing the like financial cost and interpersonal relational cost. I mean, the real cost in their life. So they start really wondering how to improve their communication skill. So once we post online, Facebook, like who is guilty of talking too much, like 200 people, commented and signed up for the beta. So and some of them actually we have closed beta for like about 20 people, and they're actually not only using this when they have a conversation, but also they try to set up conversation to use community to improve, train themselves. That's the interesting behavior we observe. So they are very motivated to use this service actually.
Can I follow up on that? Is this, and I had the same question, is this something that one uses for a short period of time? Is this something that somebody would use daily for the rest of their lives to continue improvement? And the question really goes to compliance type question.
Right. Okay. So it's somewhere in between. So improving communication is actually really hard, and there are two steps in that. One is you need to keep silent. The ADHD people with impulsivity can't stop talking and can't cut off people and talk over people. So they first have to learn how to basically shut their mouths up. And I went through that process, an intensive process, and it took me 1.5 years, and I'm still working on it, right? And after that, you have to learn. Once you create a space, you have to fill it with their voice, not your voice, right? So you have to ask them to ask constructive question, like active listening, empathetic listening, to encourage them to speak. So that part, it took a lot of years to learn. And it's not like, it's like Grammarly. You actually don't stop using Grammarly. You learn a lot, but you don't really stop using Grammarly. So it's like continuous usage. Am I answering your question?
Yes, I continue to wonder, unlike Grammarly, where I know I need to improve my writing or my grammar, if somebody with ADHD is aware of their continuing need. That's more my question.
Oh, I'm not sure if I understand the question. I'm so sorry.
That's okay. I want to give others a chance though, so I can write you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Thank you. Please.
Yeah, thanks for sharing your personal story and for the work that you're doing. I think it's a great step forward as we look for solutions in this space. My question is about metrics for success. You highlighted the talk time metric as maybe the primary way that you're tracking success through the app. I guess my question is that the primary way, and does simply talking less actually lead to more productive interpersonal relationships or more productive conversations?
Right, great question. Actually, first metrics is actually talking time. It's very inclusive metric, and actually talking time plus quality of silence. We actually collect data in silence. And if there are too much space, that means you're just awkwardly silent, right? So you're actually, you have to, we measure how much adequate space they are that they're giving, and also how much their questioning actually encourage the other person to talk. And we can actually measure that with the sentiment analysis on the voice and the context, and also the context of contents of what they asked. We can actually measure that. So those will be the next matrix, but the first matrix is how much less you talked.
Thank you.
All right, that's all the time we have for Q&A. Thank you very much, Hideyoshi and community. Next up, we have Mentor. Team Mentor, are you guys ready?
Yep, I'm here. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you, Nate.
Awesome. Okay, let me just go ahead and share my screen. Okay, screen share is up. You guys can see? Lizzie, am I good? Just a
Yeah,
thumbs
up. We can see. Go for
All right,
it
great.
whenever you're ready.
All right, great. So, hey everyone, my name is Nate. I'm the founder of Mentor. Mentor helps students learn faster and score higher on their standardized tests. We do this by building online courses that answer their questions instantly when they get stuck using conversational AI. If we look at online learning today, there's a large number of education content producers. But when it comes to learning something new or preparing for a critical standardized test, nothing beats in-person learning. Why is that? Well, if you're learning on any of these platforms, there's a fundamental problem, and that's if you get stuck, getting help takes too long. If you have a question or you're struggling to understand something, you're either waiting for a response from a live instructor or searching for the answer online. The problem is that live instructors are expensive and have limited time, so the majority of students spend up to 60% of their time just searching for answers online. So regardless of whether you're sitting in the class I taught at Berkeley or you're learning virtually on Khan Academy, this makes learning slow. Our solution is to build online courses that answer these questions instantly when students get stuck, and we do that using conversational AI. So when a student gets stuck, rather than serving a static interface like every other online content producer today, the Mentor experience is much more dynamic, where here on the right, you can see an AI chatbot responding to the questions that students have in real time, and in some cases, even preempting the questions that they didn't even know that they had. As a result, Mentor students do more practice problems per day than other test prep methods. And not only that, but they actually score in the top 90th percentile more often because they get more practice. So there's a couple things that help us do this exceptionally well. Number one is we built the technology to not only collect the questions that students ask, but also more importantly, the context in which they occur. We can then link those questions, not only link those questions with answers, but extrapolate that to every phraseological permutation of the question, multiplied by every context that it can occur in for every user in the database. And then we can deliver this to the AI that delivers an answer in less than a second. But the important thing to take away here is that this entire process is subject agnostic, meaning that we can use the exact same technology to build courses for any subject that respond instantly, just like a live teacher would. So just over 800 students have used Mentor to prepare for their exams. Our pass rate is 25% higher than the national average, which is better than a live teacher. And we can achieve this 6 times faster than in traditional high school. And it's for this reason that students really enjoy using the platform. So our business model is pretty simple. We sell directly to parents with high school students as a subscription. And these courses that can be built are either produced by Mentor or they can be produced by third parties. And that's because the technology we've built scales. We can use the same technology we're using to build courses for the 13 million high school students in math right now to build courses for all 1.5 billion students in the world in any subject for all over the next 3 years. And we can host all these courses on the Mentor platform. And so to do that, this is the third startup that I built from the ground up. I previously built a couple of schools in Ghana. I launched an exoskeleton product family that is now used by over 300 companies in 50 countries worldwide. And I've spent the past 10 years teaching at the graduate, undergraduate, and high school level at Berkeley. Michael, who is a veteran education content producer, who has 7 years of experience working at Fablevision and Kidscreen, building some of the most award-winning apps from those companies that have grossed over 1 million users worldwide. Anthony, who's the #1 AP calculus teacher in the country. Parul, who is the co-founder of Springboard, and Faraz, who's the director of the Palo Alto Foundry. We also have a large number of of mentors from our time here at Berkeley, as well as the Silicon Valley Bay Area. So this is our growth over the past couple of weeks with launch, and it was pretty linear until about 4 weeks ago, where we registered a 51% increase in users. And this coincided with our launch of the new Rooms feature. What the Rooms feature is it allows students to engage with the course material and ask the AI questions just as before, but now they can invite their friends. And this allows us to not only train the AI faster based on the conversations they have with their friends about that topic, but it also allows us to tap into the network effects when they invite their friends to study with them. And so this is responsible for our current growth rate of about 11 new users per day with 0 marketing spend. So our current priorities are to reach 10,000 users over the next couple of months. and to generalize the AI so we can host third-party courses. To do that, we're raising a $400,000 pre-seed round, of which 360 is already committed. So if that's interesting to you, or if you'd like to come work with us, please let me know, and I'd love to talk to you afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Nate. That was great. All right, now I'll turn it over to the judges.
Oops.
Hey, I'm Sam. Great presentation. I'd like to know more about the usage statistics. How long are people spending on the day?
Definitely. We don't measure by day because it fluctuates some, but we measure by week. So roughly students are spending about 1.5 hours per week on the platform.
One thing I'm a little unclear about, are you friend or foe to the other online courses? You know, do you help them? Do you help the students that are using them? Or are you directly competing with them?
We're directly competing with them.
Okay, and then the other question I had was, you used the word courses. Are you supplying the answers to the problems that they're having? Or are you giving them instruction on how to solve them?
Both. The AI is designed to answer questions as if it was a live teacher. So if the students ask for an explanation, it'll give them an explanation for that topic. Or if they want an example video, it'll give them an example video. Or if they just want the straight up answer, they'll give it an answer, or they can ask for a hint or the first step. So it's designed, because we can contextualize all of the questions that they ask, this gives us really powerful databases for delivering answers that are really driven by the context in which they occur, rather than just like very esoteric questions.
Great, thanks.
Is your long-term business model to be content creation, or are you in fact a technology platform that allows content creators, educators to go next generation?
The long-term goal here is to become a platform very similar to Coursera, but delivering courses that respond faster than a live instructor. So it's like, imagine being able to take a class on something really hard like rocket science, being able to pause the instructor, ask anything you want, and then get an immediate answer from the course instantly, and then do that 24/7.
Great. It's great.
Hey, great pitch, Nate. Talk to us about the roadmap that you have in terms of content creation. You're obviously addressing a lot of AP courses, et cetera, now. If you want to look globally, a lot of countries have these national tests that are even more heavily weighted towards graduation than our ACT, SAT here in the US. What's on the immediate roadmap, and how much of that can you get to with the 400K round that you're raising now?
Great question. So I don't want to I get this, so the immediate roadmap is to start with high school courses in the US. Those are the two blue bars that you see right here. And then we have three primary axes of expansion. We can expand into the more post-grad tests. So that's the MCAT, LSAT, and GMAT. And then we expand regionally. So that's China and India, probably just driven by growth rate. And then expanding into different industries, like, so we can target things like AR, VR, AI courses, and courses in like robotics or blockchain. So with the $400,000, we'll actually be able to set up the technology infrastructure to serve all these markets. And then our next round will be a growth round where we actually start to build the channels to enter those markets. Michael, do you want to talk a little bit about the course production process?
Yeah, definitely. So specifically relating to our first course, we're working on AP Calculus AB. We have that planned for the entire summer. We're looking at completing that for a cost of about $30,000. One of the things Nate didn't mention here is that we're really focusing on bringing in individuals that have used calculus in real life to sort of make this a little bit more engaging for the students. So roughly that's a summer goal, doing filming and animation for that over the course of the summer.
Thank you.
I have a really quick one. Do you see this as a supplement to traditional learning or supplanting traditional learning in the future?
How far into the future? Initially, this is going to be supplementary because the world is just the infrastructure required to transition a certain part of the existing learning. This is going to happen relatively slowly, but we can offer a surprisingly effective way to deliver top tier education to high schools. And we have an enterprise product plan. If I could talk to you about that after offline. In the future, any online course that does not answer your questions in real time will be at a severe disadvantage.
I was saying, right, with remote learning, that's exactly what I was wondering. Okay, fascinating.
Thank you very much. Well, that was all the time we have for Q&A. Very relevant technology here. So time flies. So we're actually reaching our last startup in the first group as we head into the second group after the break. So we have next up Serene. Are you guys ready?
Yes, we're ready to go. Just give me a second to share my screen.
Of course. I can see your screen.
Great, so I'll just continue. So hi, I'm Yinka, founder of Serene. It's Serene for serendipity, and we're helping remote colleagues have great water cooler chats. I worked from home for 3 years, and I enjoyed many parts of it, but some parts didn't work as well. Today, millions of people work from home, and it's expected that 47 million people will continue to work from home at least weekly after the pandemic. But remote work brings new challenges, many of which we are familiar with. People are tired of having endless Zoom calls, and overwork is a core challenge for many people who are remote. Along with that is an old problem I faced when I worked remotely all those years ago. I found that it's really hard to maintain and build informal relationships with my coworkers. And when I worked remotely without those kinds of bonds, it was hard to find mentors and grow in my career. Do you remember this? Those foreign, unplanned conversations around the office, water cooler chats, were a way for people to preserve a sense of culture, meet new people, and sometimes share new ideas about how to do work better. Without such interactions, it's harder to preserve a sense of culture in a company, and innovation can also suffer over time. Our solution is trying to solve and address this problem. Serene creates instant water cooler calls among coworkers based on their unique interest and the goals. So Serene is cross-platform. It works with tools such as Zoom or Teams or Slack, and it's very personalized for who you want to talk to or who you want to avoid, as long as how many people are a good match for you. Serene is also not for random connections, because many times people want to be able to engage with the coworkers who they already know on a consistent basis at work. The next screen will show you what using Serene feels like. At the push of a button, people click on a button like match, and Serene will check and see who is free and available for them and a good match in their workspace. Afterwards, people can specify what topics are most interesting for them or choose to join existing or recent conversations that are already ongoing. And finally, people get a link that you're familiar with, whether it's a Meets link or a Zoom link for the conversations. After 200 plus interviews, we found our initial adopter segments. These are the people, although everyone needs water cooler chat, some groups have the highest pain point for it. Jake is a product manager who needs to influence people without authority. And what he told us was, I feel like my interactions are transactional. And when the designers I work with or engineers don't know me, they don't care when I ask them to do some work for me. On the flip side, Lisa is someone fresh out of college who wants to build new connections, but finds it very hard to connect with mentors because every interaction has to be a 30-minute catch-up session, which makes it feel very formal and intimidating. These are the segments in which we think we'll find the strongest initial value for our product. I'm sure you have questions. How is Serene different from every other remote work solution you've heard about in the past couple months? The first thing is the Serene is highly personalized. So it depends on who you want to talk to and the goals that you have. And if you actually you have people who are your favorite people in the office, Serene can help you match with those people more often than not. The second thing is that Serene is spontaneous. If you have an idea which maybe is good, maybe is terrible, you want to find out from your coworkers in 10 minutes, not in 3 days' time after a 30 minutes scheduled conversation. And so Serene combines that aspect of being personalized along with spontaneity. What's our secret sauce? The core thing here is that if we're able to learn who everyone in the company wants to interact with and who they care about in relationships, we think that data will make it hard for anyone else to replicate or to copy. And so far, we have a great team working to build this product. I have a background working in impact and technology, and I've spent a lot of my career working on problems that affect many people across the world. My CTO, Chilas, has built products that scale for many users and worked at Africa's largest telco. And our head of business development has 7 years experience doing B2B SaaS sales. The market size for water cooler chats is huge, and here are a few of the programs that we've been part of in the past couple months. We're working to make remote work viable because there are real challenges. Once people return to the office, research has found that without water cooler chats and interactions, people saw promotions reduced by 50% for some workers and also had innovation suffer. We want to prevent this from happening and promote a future of remote work that supports more diverse workforces and work-life flexibility. Help us build this better future faster. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Another very relevant technology considering the time that we're in. Now I'll turn it over to the judges.
I was wondering on your TAM and how you think about the market potentially being reliant on remote work being here to stay, and how you think about that.
That's a great question. So how we did our TAM was to assume that 30% of the workforce will work from home at least on a weekly basis. So the assumption there is that 30% of people are either fully remote or a couple of days a week they're working remotely. And then we assume that it would cost around $2 per user. And if you multiply those numbers, you would get the 1 billion TAM that we've calculated. Those are our assumptions.
Would you say the product is more for mentorship or camaraderie?
That's a great question. To be honest, we're not entirely sure. As of right now, we ideally wanted to do both. So it's like, if you go to an office water cooler, you can find a mentor, sure, or just share a joke about work you're doing. So that's what we're trying to do. But we're starting with, first of all, the product manager type of use case and also a mentorship type use case initially.
I couldn't tell. Is this auto-initiated chats and meetings, or is this self-initiated? That was unclear to me. I'm sorry.
No, that is not clear. I would say it's both. So people can initiate them whenever they want to. You want to chat in like the next 2 minutes, you can request one initially, or the app can over time learn when you want to engage and invite you to join those calls that are ongoing.
Okay.
Any other questions or comments from the judges?
I guess just one more question. Do you envision this being used solely within particular organizations, or do you also envision a larger type of networking or external mentoring type of use case for this?
So initially, we focus primarily on organizations. So like ideally, we get to like large enterprise companies that want their coworkers to engage and bond. And when some are hybrid and some are in person, it gets very hard. So that's the ideal use case for us. But longer term, you can see a place where we can like link people across different organizations based on what we know about them and what they care about. So we could be like Clubhouse, through like a different route of internal trusted networks over time. That is possible, yes.
Great.
Any other questions from the judges?
Sure. Is there a core size to the kind of company you feel you would be a good fit for this product? Do you want 100 plus employees?
So the dream would be 1,000, but that's hard to get to. So initially we're starting with companies above 100 employees. We think at the 100 plus employee size, it makes sense. And our initial pilot discussions for our companies around that 100 plus size, and we should be able to like do rollout trials with them in a couple of weeks. That's what we've focused on for now. Yeah.
Right. Looks like that's all the time we have for Q&A. Thank you very much. So with that, we are wrapped up the group one of the startups. We will be taking a five minutes break. So that would be 3:01. I don't want to rob you guys of the extra minutes they're here. So if everyone just come back at 3:01, we'll resume here.
All right, we'll give it another 30 seconds or so. Everyone can start coming back, finishing up your coffee or water or whatever it is you're using to get through the day. Yeah.
Is it not cocktail time somewhere?
Maybe for the teams that have pitched.
That's a good one. 5 a.m. There you go.
Just gonna check real quick with 7th AI. You guys are going next. Are you guys ready?
Ready to go. Thanks, Lizzie.
You got it. All right, looks like most of us are back. Welcome to the second half of the startup pitches. For this section, we have on the slide here 7th AI, Entropic Materials, Minwo Advisory, and Avec. Similar format as before, 5 minutes pitch, 5 minutes Q&A. And with that, I have the pleasure of introducing 7th AI. Go for it when you guys are ready.
Awesome, thanks. I'm gonna share my screen, right? So I'm gonna, yep. Let me know when you're beginning to see something.
Yeah, I can see your screen. It's not in projection mode though.
Yep, get in there.
Looking good.
Okay, ready?
Go for it.
Well, hi everyone. My name is Alex Polanski. I am founder and CEO of 7th, and 7th is the Carta for IP. Carta helps companies manage and optimize equity. 7th helps companies manage and optimize their intellectual property. Global IP liquidity is estimated at well north of 1 trillion, but it is very difficult to unlock all that value because the industry is fragmented, tools are cumbersome, expensive, built for lawyers. These tools do not communicate with each other. But IP is becoming increasingly more important. Today, it accounts for 90% of the value of the S&P 500, driven by tech companies. And it will continue to increase the value of the S&P 500 because these companies are using modern data, intelligence, and collaboration tools and platforms to help them manage and optimize every single function across the organization, be it sales, securities, human resources, productivity, except for one of the most valuable assets the company owns, intellectual property. There is nothing out there that helps founders manage and optimize their IP. It is not only a problem for companies who are expressly trying to grow value through IP, but every single company leaves itself exposed to house on fire crises, such as founder IP issues, IP theft, competitive infringement, and trolls. Now let's for one moment imagine a platform like that actually exists today, and let's call it 7th. We think it would be one of the most valuable companies in the world today. Why? Because by bringing all the key stakeholders onto one platform where they can use data intelligence and collaboration tools to manage and optimize IP, we can begin to unlock that IP liquidity. And where every incremental piece of IP that gets added to this exchange increases value for everyone in the ecosystem. More importantly, now companies can manage and optimize their own intellectual property and allocate the best resources to the right teams to help them work on more critical problems that face humanity for decades to go. Now, wouldn't that be nice? The bad news is this company does not exist, but clearly it has to be built. The great news is we have already started laying the groundwork to become one of the most valuable companies in the world. Here's how we do it. We start by enabling founders who focus on building their IP as an integral part of the business. We help them address a real, repeatable, and scalable pain point. Today, they use spreadsheets to manage patents, which is messy. They get emails from the USPTO and their lawyers, which get ignored and lost. Using modern workflows, We help them organize everything in one place, which makes the platform very sticky. Now, remember, Carta has built a $3.2 billion business here, and it started by simply organizing equity in one place. In our case, and more importantly, founders can manage, optimize, and even start to monetize their IP. But why did we begin here? We've interviewed well over 200 founders and CEOs at deep tech, life science, and SaaS companies. Today, they use systems and platforms to manage and optimize every other facet of the organization except for this IP. These founders are pulling their own hair out trying to manage, and they're ready to pay Seventh to help them grow faster and become even more valuable. Now, to build a company like that will take an exceptional team. I'm a former patent examiner, 10 years at the USPTO. And this year, I will be named one of only 300 type IP strategists, experts in the world by Intellectual Asset Management, the industry standard. Janesh, the co-founder and head of product and strategy, is a computer science and finance major, worked at Wall Street, tech. He's an expert in data analytics, marketplaces, and SaaS. A serial entrepreneur in his own right. Built a company that got funded by Y Combinator and top-tier investors like Khosla, Pear, and even the NBA. And Ellen, who is our head of engineering, a Berkeley computer science grad, 7 years experience working at VC-backed SaaS companies, helping them build from nothing. Seventh is the second company we're actually working on together. She's a problem solver, a growth hacker, and an amazing person all around. As a quick review, we are building a new category which exhibits stickiness and strong network effects. This is an enormous market, a problem that clearly has to be solved, and we are the best team to solve it. We have validated to ourselves that 20% of the tech companies are already building their own intellectual property before they even raise a first round of funding. We have tested pricing strategies with the founders, and we have even proven that we can monetize here. We actually grew our initial pilot at 45% month over month to 200K in trailing ARR. Everyone knows this problem must be solved. Today, we're getting checks from angel investors, patent attorneys, and recently from an ex-managing director at Samsung Ventures. Now, if you'd like to join us on this fast-moving journey to building one of the biggest companies in the world, please come talk to us. We will make time for you. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. That was great. I'll turn it over to the judges.
Alex, you said a couple times you're building one of the biggest companies in the world, and I love that goal. But you also said your TAM is $1 billion. So what am I missing? Because to build the biggest company in the world, your TAM would have to be significantly higher than $1 billion.
Hi, Jed. I think in the beginning, one of the slides actually says 1 trillion. Did we?
Yeah, but then I mean, I guess that's the overall IP market, with a lot of value being difficult, if not impossible, to unlock. But what you're charging a SaaS fee, right? I assume.
Exactly right. So let me show how we're actually doing this. And I think this is what will probably basically shine some light at the question that you're trying to ask. I think what's more important to realize here is that yes, there are companies that are already doing IP. Everybody agrees that this is a market that's worth well north of $1 trillion. But there is also what we're trying to say here is that we'll be able to tap into that liquidity by building a private exchange first, and from there, now we can actually start making products and services for people who are also not doing IP, but they should be, right? Now, the public markets exist. There is a big opportunity there, but we're not foolish enough that we know, that we think we can move the needle there. So that's part of the reason why we're starting from bottom up.
But it is a SaaS model. It's not a when you said an exchange, you're not taking a piece of any exchange that happens. You're just charging a software fee, correct?
Correct. It is a SaaS model. Yep, it is a SaaS model. Eventually, we'll build an exchange like Carta X.
Got
it. Can you expand on that? So as a Carta user, I get it. I get the value, but you used words like unlock and optimize and liquidity, but I didn't hear you talk about what that is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so a couple of different things here, right? I think that we all realize that the value of IP is enormous, right? And I think that was the chart that I was trying to show that, S&P 500, 90% of that is but kind of locked up in IP, right? But what is that, right? What does that mean? And so we're trying to understand, we're trying to put some sort of value on it. It's very difficult to do. A lot of people don't understand, it's cumbersome, et cetera. But I think that it's the point here, I think, is kind of look at the way organizations are doing business today. They're building valuable companies using tools like, for example, Gusto to manage all their HR, right? Or Zenefits. productivity tools, Google Suite for everything, right? So it's basically all in one encompassing tool that helps them manage and then also optimize, and then they grow value through that. We're simply saying there's absolutely nothing like that exists from the intellectual property side, where it's a founder first tool where companies can actually do that themselves. Obviously, they're working with lawyers, right? We're not disintermediating in fact, we're bringing everybody closer together, reducing a lot of that overhead. There's a lot of admin work, non-billable work, and things like that, right? But at the same time, growing value, lead generation, other things. So I think there's some of the products in the marketplace can include potentially lead generation. They can include like an expert marketplace, and we'd be able to productize it. At this moment, where this is a little bit of a, hey, this is a model that worked, for example, for Carta. Hopefully, there are some parallels in what we're doing. Did I answer your question?
Mostly.
Which part did not answer?
Well, let's give others a chance.
Okay.
Yeah, really quickly, how do you qualify your leads? There's obviously a wide range in terms of the value of intellectual property, everything from a trademark all the way up to a patent or even provisional patent. How do you qualify your leads, and is your eventual state going to be available for anybody, and really no matter what the value, how big or small?
Great question, Brandon. Thank you. So we right now we're working with teams, deep tech founders, at least raised the Series A. In fact, they just experienced this IP due diligence. It was a giant pain. They typically have about at least 10 patents, raised maybe at least 10 million, that kind of thing. So this is basically how we qualify our initial group, our initial cohort, and focus our efforts there. And then from there, we're building a kind of a pipeline of additional deep tech companies at various stages, post Series A through C. This is, there's a ton of companies out there just like that. Right? There's 130,000 companies, active tech companies in the US alone, 300, almost 400,000 globally, but we're focusing on US. We're focusing on deep tech, life science, biotech, and then eventually we will provide the kind of webinars and seminars where we bring people together, and take advantage of the network effects. Now investors tell their companies, hey, maybe you need to be paying attention to this, just like they're telling everybody, hey, you need to be on Carta, right? Don't just stop wasting your time. Equity is not your expertise. Stop wasting your time because IP is not your expertise, but you can unlock considerable amount of value here. Did I answer your question?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Alex, and thanks, judges. So with that concludes our Q&A. Next up, we have Entropic Materials. I see you there, Aaron. Are you ready to present?
There we go, off mute. All right.
Take us away.
Great. At Entropic, we're on a mission to build a more sustainable world using nature and deep tech. Hi, everybody. I'm Aaron Hall, founder and CEO of Entropic Materials.
And I'm Morgan Zamaitis, a business analyst on the team. Our core mission is to develop self-degrading plastics. Plastic has become an incredibly valuable resource in our economy. It packages our food, protects our medicines, and even sends robots to Mars. And yet that's come at a cost. That Texas-sized garbage patch in the ocean is a clear sign that this is a problem. Why are plastics accumulating? They're hard to get rid of. How many times have you stood in front of a recycling, trash, and compost bin feeling lost, confused where to put that eco-friendly cup, concerned our recycling is not getting recycled at all, scared that BPA and microplastics are going to kill the fish and give us all cancer? The waste process in our country and around the world is broken. We need to start designing with the end in mind. Compostable plastics have emerged as a solution for single-use foods and products. If you've ever used those silky green produce bags or corn-based forks, then you've probably used compostable plastics. And the market is growing. It's already in the billions and is poised to continue expanding. Yet, for all of this tremendous growth for plastics, only 2% of compost facilities are able to handle these new products. We have spoken to numerous operators that say they would need to triple their turnover time to break down these materials. They can't take your corn-based fork. Brands, consumers, and composters need a better solution, and that's where we come in.
See, in compost, the microbes use enzymes, these little green circles, to degrade the plastic from the outside in. They're great at that job, but they're also very mobile, leading to slow, incomplete breakdown. We're cutting out the microbe middlemen and working with the enzymes directly. See, typically enzymes are fragile once they're removed from the cell. However, using the nanoprotectant platform developed during my PhD, we can provide best-in-class stabilization for both natural and engineered enzymes. And we use this to embed the enzymes directly inside the plastic. Once activated, the enzymes get to work, quickly chopping the plastics into benign small molecules. And this isn't just theory, it works. We're 98% faster than the controls. And we can use both regular compost, which is on the right, or simple hot water baths on the left to start degradation. We've spoken with over 180 potential customers to validate our approach. CPG companies, driven by groups like Ellen MacArthur Foundation and As You Sow, are paying increased attention to improving their packaging. Many of them claim to be moving to post-consumer recycled plastic, but the waste system can only supply about 6% of that need. There is this sustainable plastic vacuum and an immediate need to fill it. And critically, the companies are willing to pay an 8 to 14% premium for new materials. We've identified 3 relevant customer segments for this technology. Biopolymer manufacturers supply these plastics, and they can access a wider variety of designs using our technology. Further, they existentially need to be compostable, and we already learned how dubious that claim can be. We solve that problem. CPG is highly consumer-facing and needs innovation to relieve the PR disasters that they've created and gain a leg up on their competition. And finally, large retailers have the consumer pressure and purchase power to pull real substantial change through the system. And enzymes are not just limited to packaging. From chemical manufacturing to food tech and pharma, enzymes are the workhorse behind the biotech revolution that we're all living through. Our core enzyme stabilization technology platform can support across the entire biotech space, unlocking and expanding markets. We have the right team to bring this to market. I spent the last 5 years developing this during my PhD at Cal, and I have extensive experience scaling technology from R&D to market from my previous times in industry. And Morgan is expanding on her extensive experiences in clean tech and sustainable supply chains with an MBA and is well positioned to support commercialization. We've made immense progress to date, and we're gearing up for the next major steps. This includes contract manufacturing to get us to the kilogram scale, grant writing, and pilot trials with our customers. We're working to bring forward a truly bio-based economy, and we'd love your support. We'd use the prize money to do commercial runs, which would unlock sample sales and validate our further scaling with consumers. And we'd company leadership and regulatory experts to be sure that we're ready for launch. Thank you so much, and I look forward to your questions.
Thank you, Aaron, and thank you, Morgan. With that, I'll turn it over to the judges.
I had a really quick one. Are you a manufacturing company? Are you licensing this to others? Are you creating and selling enzymes in, large trucks that drive around? Unclear.
Yeah, so we're still working through kind of the final parts of that. We have really strong core technology, and I think the nanoprotectants themselves, at least on the front end, we're going to be manufacturing those. The enzymes that we're going to work with right now are commercially available already, as are the bioplastics that we can integrate into. In the longer term, whether it makes more sense to set up licensing or sell some sort of product, I think still to be determined and working with customers.
Thank you.
Thank you.
You guys spend some time going through the potential customers and why this will ultimately be important to them. Have you taken that a step further and identified who's most likely to be able to adapt their manufacturing process quickly so that they could start doing this and test it out? Because some of those guys, it's really hard to get them to change anything.
Yeah, that's a fantastic question. And it's something that we've been thinking about from the front end. So for one, the technology we're already testing it to see if it's compatible with commercial scale manufacturing. It would work like an additive. And we're using very low quantities because our system is extremely efficient. And so that means, it's basically a drop into the system. Now, how that plays out at the commercial scale is something that, there's always hiccups translating lab research into commercial. And so that's really where some of the next work is looking to go, is produce those larger scale batches and actually start running on lines so we can identify, those minor tweaks.
Yeah, and just to add to that, you're saying larger scale, but you don't have to think in terms of giant scale yet. Just figure out how to get it into the flow somewhere at any volume, so you can prove it's not a major change in their system. It's just literally one little step that's easy to add.
Yep. Yeah, that's what we're doing at the lab scale, right? We were working with extruders, we're working with melt casting, the kinds of things that are commercially relevant. That next step up is the pilot that they would be looking at. So much appreciated on the feedback there. Thank you.
Along similar lines, I was also just wondering about the team's experience or knowledge in this particular industry. If you could just touch on that a little more. I know this is a pretty hard industry to penetrate with any type of new technology, and do you have people who are intimately familiar with the players and the motivations and all that?
Yeah, thanks so much. That's a great point. So I spent 3 years working for Del Monte Foods before I decided to go to grad school and pursue a PhD. Worked in R&D there very closely with the packaging team and made some really close friends in that space. So I've relied on them pretty heavily to kind of help me get in conversation with the right people. I also did the National ICOR program this past fall. We had an industry veteran who'd worked at Arkema for years leading R&D and entrepreneurial work on the inside, entrepreneurship, right? And so he also helped really guide us and shape and is still serving in that capacity as a mentor. And of course, we're expanding, right? We're looking to meet more people. We're looking to leverage that network and build it out because, as you say, this is a complex, huge ecosystem that we're working through. So building that out now. And Morgan also worked in sustainable supply chains before coming to Haas. And has some experience with sort of the procurement, RFP, and that sort of side of things as well.
How big is the total team?
Right now, it's Morgan and I, and then looking at bringing on some more team members over the course of this year.
Any other questions from the judges?
Yeah, really quick one from me. How would you envision the relationship working with a retailer versus a product company, a CPG company? I see you have retailer listed in terms of folks you'd like to be connected with.
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I know from my time at Del Monte and also just validated again through ICOR, speaking with a lot of CPG and retail has an enormous impact on the packaging and design and products. And so, they're often working very closely hand in hand with CPG. When I think about the relationship that I build there, it's much more about thinking about a vision and thinking about, long-term, how can we work together to bring systemic change to this issue that affects the entire globe. Whereas with a CPG company, it's a little bit more narrow in terms of what specific product is this brand manager or the sustainability team looking to make real impact on right now. And how can we deliver those solutions for them at this time? And so I think it can be a similar type of relationship, but it doesn't necessarily have to be. And I think there's a little bit more of the weeds with the CPG companies in comparison with the retailers, where we're looking at big vision there and then leveraging them to pull.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
What's the biggest risk, short-term risk, that you're facing?
Yeah, I think, biggest short-term risk is probably companies making strong, investments, like big investments toward some specific direction to improve their work. So if one company says, we're going to go 100% in on recycled polymer, we're going to pay to build recycling infrastructure globally, they're not likely to step out of that. But that isn't really what we're seeing trend-wise. There's sort of trickles in here and there, but I think every company is keeping, just to the extent that they can, right, keeping their options open because the current paradigm just isn't working. And they're open ideas here.
Thank you.
With that, thank you very much, Entropic and judges. As Melanie said in the chat, really liking the positive long-term impact of this. So next up, it will be Minwo.
Alrighty, well, let me just have a second to share my screen. Let me know when you can see it.
Yes, we can see it.
Perfect. Hustling backwards. Working hard without showing any progress, and how I would describe my first 3 years as a founder. While living in Silicon Valley, where 72% of the startup ecosystem consists of white men, I was clearly a fish out of water. It wasn't until I discovered communities like the Coalition of Black Excellence that the trajectory of my business changed. I'm Melanie Akule, founder and CEO at Minwo, and I'm building the business I wish existed when I started my founder journey. At Minwo, we've created a digital ecosystem that brings together Black founders, the communities that support them, and the resource and capital providers looking to invest in them. Our custom-built platform, Rialto, provides community as a service and prioritizes Black business development. Take, for example, our customer, Dr. Christian Edwards, founder of Black and Green, an all-natural marketplace by all Black artisans. The community it provided gave brands like the Honey Pot and Black Girl Sunscreen the start they needed to become the multi-million-dollar companies they are today, distributed in stores like Target and Walgreens. Creating and maintaining these communities can be challenging. To support her artisans, Dr. Edwards has to spend time finding and promoting resources, attracting new artisans, and connecting artisans to each other and experts to foster business development. Rialto and its smart matching technology solve these pain points for both founders and community organizers, enabling them to now hustle forward. Rialto gives customers like Black and Green superpowers to increase engagement within their communities with less effort. Each community space has a resource library and office hours corner for members to proactively engage with and support each other on their journeys. For founders, Rialto plugs you into the right resources, experts, and conversations through a proprietary chatbot, helping you cut through the noise, showing you recommendations that appear on your Explore page. Since March 1st, we've signed five Black business communities like Black and Green to migrate to Rialto and have a network of partners ready to support. These 5 customers expose us to 150 Black-owned businesses, with our customer pipeline network extending to over 2,000 more. Entrepreneur support organizations spend $100,000 in diversity outreach annually, creating a $2 billion market. We've started with tackling the connectivity of the Black business ecosystem, which is a $180 million market, and will expand into additional business development support verticals. Since June of 2020, more than $750 million has been publicly committed for the development of Black businesses. We want Rialto to be at the heart of this ecosystem. Our community as a service model charges $100 to $500 per community space per month for organizations like Black and Green that want to increase their effectiveness in resourcing and supporting their members. For organizations looking to diversify and their investment and development pipelines, access to Rialto as a resource provider starts at $50 per month. Our leadership reflects our community and has over 40 years of work experience in data science, cybersecurity, product management, and marketing. Our advisor, Alicia Bell, has formidable experience in this space and was pivotal to the creation of the $10 million fund for Black founders recently launched by PayPal. Personally, I spent 5.5 years working for GE as a senior technical product manager, creating data science-based software, one of which was patented. We kicked off our seed round earlier this year with a check from Cox Enterprise Social Impact Accelerated by Techstars, and are in conversations with a number of investors with a goal to close by June. These funds primarily will go toward onboarding our pilot customers, rolling out additional community engagement features, and acquiring new customers. Join us in our mission to close the racial wealth gap through business ownership. Black founders or resource providers can visit rialtoapp.co to get started today, and feel free to reach out to me directly at melanie@minwo.co for any partnership opportunities. Thank you for your time. I'll take any questions you have.
Thank you, Melanie. That was great. Now I'll turn it over to the judges.
I'm curious about future verticals, because you mentioned that, but before you do, I just want to say, as somebody who is represented as a lawyer, Black women entrepreneurs, good for you. That it's the difference is shocking, and again, good for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that. As for verticals, so essentially right now we're starting with the connectivity within the ecosystem. As I mentioned, there are many communities out there. Black founders may or may not know about them. It takes a while, right? So that's step one. Once we get that ecosystem and that centralization in place, then we're thinking about additional ways to support those founders that are on the platform. So for example, if they are hiring, can we create a job board for them to be able to more easily find candidates to hire? Do we create a marketplace for them to be able to sell their products and services through, those kind of things?
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Quick question. Are you also going to help the founders raise money here?
So not directly. Our goal is more so the exposure. So the next phase of the business would essentially be data as a service. So providing VCs and angels the access to be able to kind of slice and dice the data that's available on the platform to find the founders that they want to invest in.
Yeah, it's a little complicated, but you might want to think about adding syndicates also.
Mm-hmm.
It might be a great way for you to put this concept on rockets and have them go even further.
Yeah, we're in conversations with a couple of syndicates that have shown interest. Just trying to figure out where value lies for them.
So great job, Melanie. I'm very familiar with Dr. Christian and Black and Green, and love that you've been able to partner with her. Curious to know what your metrics for success are. Is it time on the platform? So is there like a daily active user, monthly active user metric? Is it the actual number of entrepreneurs that the community managers that you're working with are engaging with, or is it something else to the point that that I think Jed was making, fundraising or sales or something else that's maybe off the platform that you use to measure or to show the efficacy of the platform?
Yeah, in our pre-product days, we were measuring the connectivity. So last year we matched 109 Black founders with over $300,000 in business development and funding opportunities. We want to be able to still track some level of meaningful engagement, as we call it, on the platform. So whether it's the number of office hours attended, the number of resources engaged with, and then even the connections and the way that you connect on the platform. It's not a follow culture. It's more so people you connect with are people that you've had meaningful interactions with. I hope that answered your question.
It did. Thanks.
Any other question from the judges?
Awesome. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Minwo and judges. Well, next up, we have advisory. I'm searching for you guys on the screen. Are you guys ready to present?
Yes, we're ready.
Great. Take us away.
All right. Hi, everyone. I'm Allison. Manny, are you muted?
Yeah, I don't think I can hear Manny.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was muted.
Great.
We can hear you now.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Allison.
And I'm Manny, and we are Advisorly, empowering students to achieve their full potential through a cohesive community college transfer platform.
On this day, I finally felt like a proud community college transfer student. Of the community college students who applied to UC Berkeley's Haas School of Business, I was among the 5% to be accepted in their transfer cohort. What you don't see in my picture to the right, being misguided by counselors, faculty, and professors, spending late nights trying to decode the confusing requirements regarding what classes to take. Administrators and professors telling me not to apply to Berkeley, and feeling alone because no one believed in me. Today, I am a proud transfer student, undergraduate Berkeley Haas class of 2021, and co-founder of Advisorly. And I'm here to tell you that community college students deserve better. My story is not unique. On average, a community college student will spend 4.5 years trying to transfer to a four-year university, which more than doubles the expected 2-year track. Academic counselors are overburdened with caseloads of over 1,300 students, and on average, students take an extra 32 course credits that go to waste.
Without innovation, these challenges are insurmountable for community colleges. Statewide, the transfer rate is 6.5% for community college transfer to community college to university transfer students. This phenomenon impacts Black, Indigenous, and people of color worse than it does the other students. 70% of students will never earn a 2 or 4-year degree. To make matters worse, state subsidized funding makes it such that each transfer student is worth $5,400 to the community college. That's $55.2 million in performance-based funding, depends on the student performance at each community college. Advisory has created the only recommendation engine and an optimized solution to help students save time and money by aggregating core requirements, major specific requirements, and all transfer agreements that orient a student to be able to transfer from community college to 4-year university. Our solution is accurate, seamless, with no wait time, and customized for the student's journey. Our future features include machine learning with a deep learning recommendation engine. We're helping students connect with classmates and others who aspire to transfer with them to help build that sense of community and help students engage in forums so that they can collaborate together and transfer more successfully.
By 2031, college-age students will have more than doubled, driving more students to community college. Also, there has been a 31% increase in student technology spend, and the state subsidized funding for transfer success has penetrated more than 50% of the ecosystem. We've evaluated the competitive landscape and designed a unique and comprehensive solution to empower students and improve the community college experience for all stakeholders. We have the only comprehensive and accurate recommendation engine to allow students to quickly and easily plan their academic journey. In addition, we have studied the value of peer-to-peer networks, and we are developing features to help students connect based on their university transfer aspirations.
Our business model is a SaaS licensing model, which we will sell to community colleges in the form of helping students build academic maps, creating transfer student forums, helping community colleges identify prospective student leads, as well as do course demand forecasting to help them better capture their performance-based funding, their state subsidized funding. We also have a custom data pipeline that we've built ourselves that doesn't make us dependent on the actual community college or institution. We can also sell directly to students the student academic map features and the transfer student forums.
Since transferring to UC Berkeley, I can't count how many sleepless nights I've spent working on Advisely. I can't even count how many times family and friends have asked why I'm not recruiting for jobs. But what I can count on is Advisely's impact on real students. Over 200 students signed up during our 6-week pilot, of which we selected 22. We saved each student almost $10,000 and 2 years in the transfer process. Currently, the remaining registered students will be serviced with our upcoming version release.
Our projected revenue is $1.5 million in year one with a $750,000 spend. Over the last year and a half, we've spent time in customer discovery, working through the Berkeley ecosystem, such as the Skydeck Hot Desk Program, the Big Ideas Contest, Techstars Blackstone Launchpad Fellowship, and the Hansu Lee Fellowship to develop our MVP. We've secured $225,000 in funding. We're in contract negotiations with one community college, and by the summer, we're going to be launching version 2 of our software. We've established an exclusive partnership with Eldertree, a proven leader in community college student success, and by year end, we expect 5,000 students and 2 community colleges onboarded. Our team comprises of deep domain experts in community college. Over 50% of us are successful transfer students with over 15 years of experience. I was a former product manager in the Air Force, and I managed a portfolio of over $300 million of technology and over 150 people. This is the most capable and motivated team I have ever worked on. Together, we will solve the pain that so many students across the United States face. Our ask is for $750,000 to capture 16,000 student users, 2 community colleges, and $29,000 in monthly recurring revenue.
Thank you, Allison, and thank you, Manny. Looks like you're getting some love from the live feed. Congrats. So with that, I'll turn it over to the judges.
Hey, so how long does it take to sell to a community college and get them onboarded? And who are you talking to do these?
Yeah, Allison, do you mind if I take it?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, it takes about 3 to 4 months in the sales cycle. We've identified the threshold for which community colleges spend when they don't have to get district approval. So we're going to use that as basically our cornerstone to land more customers and get as much real estate as possible. With that being said, we actually have that partnership with Eldertree where we have garnered relationships with over 13 different community colleges, and we've begun that sales cycle. That's why we're in contract negotiations now. So we anticipate that by the end of the summer, we're going to overperform our expectations. But for now, our goal is to have 2 community colleges secured by the end of the year. each community college provides about $3.5 million in annual recurring revenue in terms of enterprise value.
Have you guys thought about not doing that and not selling to the community colleges at all, but giving it to them, or at least a freemium version of it, and really just selling to students who are most focused on transferring? I think it's a great product, but I fear that the bureaucracy of selling to community colleges will prevent thousands of people from ever getting their hands on this.
Absolutely. So we have our own custom data pipeline where we feed over 150 different sources into it to make sure that we solidify our data veracity. Whether a school wants to work with us or not, we can still launch in their ecosystem. Us working with community colleges is simply a play to help the community college help themselves. We know that if we help all stakeholders in this journey, that all boats will rise for community college students.
I also think it's important to note that the majority of our revenue is actually coming from independent students rather than the community colleges themselves.
Yeah, so when we ran our pilot, we charged between $99 and $299 for students. We saw no difference in conversion. And our pilot helped us to determine the pricing for the independent students. As you can see here, the actual institution only represents 20% of our total revenue projections.
Any other questions, judges?
I was just going to ask, what are your priorities in the next 6 to 12 months? Like what's in the immediate future if you get this funding you're looking for?
The biggest priority for us is to make sure we nail it and then scale it. We want to make sure that we design a system that's end-to-end helpful for the individual student, that we make sure that our churn rate is reasonable. We have a goal of less than 5%, and that we create unique value for the student in excess of $6,000 on average per student. We want to 10x the LTV to value that we deliver the student.
Are the costs largely marketing costs that you're incurring or expect to incur?
Yes, sir. So today we've invested over $200,000 into building Advisorly. We're on version 2, and we anticipate that the majority of our costs are going to be variable associated with marketing. Our team costs are relatively low because we've built our own data pipeline and we've spent a lot of resources doing that. But yeah, most of our costs are marketing. Our marketing spend in year 1 is a little less than before because of the acquisition tactics that we're going to use, but in the future, it's going to be between 20 and 25%.
I think that ties into the earlier question about the sales cycle for me.
Okay, and that's also for the independent student. For the actual institution, we anticipate SG&A cost, or so sales cost for a team.
Can I ask one follow-up? Have you guys thought about adding a marketplace of kind of independent advisors to this to help people beyond all the stuff that the software is doing, to help people, hold their hand, give them a white glove service to get even more advice in trying to transfer, because you can make a lot of money doing that.
Yes, sir. Yeah, we have explored partnerships and we're in communication with a few companies, but on this pitch, we can't really say much. Yeah, we have done that. And we've actually explored partnerships with other companies more strategically to help essentially increase our stickiness and ensure that we are providing that end-to-end value, not just for the student, but also for the institution, because they have trouble tracking the students so they can actually win on their performance-based funding. A lot of the metrics are not trackable after the student transfers.
Also, because of our concierge and our pilot that we ran, we found there was a huge customer segment, and not huge, but a sizable customer segment that did like that hand-holding that you're referencing to, Jed. Mm-hmm. So, that is important, and that is something we'll take into account when we launch our next version.
Okay.
Any other questions from the judges? All right, with that, thank you very much, Manny and Allison. Don't forget to check out all the love that you're getting in and out of this pitch on our live feed as well.
Thank you, guys.
Okay, well, last but not least, we have our last startup, and that would be Avec Bloom.
All right.
Thank you very much. Jake, take us away.
All right. Hey, y'all, I'm Jake Wall, and I'm one of the co-founders here at Avec Bloom. And let's face it, we all want the same thing, a beverage that tastes as great as the good life feels. So please allow me to introduce you to Avec Bloom. Beverage consumption is an essential part of the everyday life, and there is an emerging market within the cannabis industry that has yet to be fully tapped. At Avec Bloom, we elevate the everyday through perfectly dosed, premium cannabis-infused beverages that are bridging the gap between this new industry and mainstream consumption trends. We bottle the good life, and the good life is meant to be shared. So let's dive in. Millennial and Zennial men and women are adopting alcohol beverage alternatives at staggering rates, and yet these options are things that they're looking for both within and outside of the cannabis industry. The problem still remains unsolved as these consumers are left wanting for more. Existing brands are too masculine or too counterculture and simply don't deliver on the promise of superior taste, leaving our consumers turned off or left for wanting more. Avec Bloom solves this problem by jumping headfirst into this with borrowing best practices from the premium alcohol, fashion, and retail industries and delivering on this in the form, function, and flavor that our consumers demand through our premium infused cannabis beverages. Welcome to the golden state of mind. Our beverages come in complementary family products, our product families, and can be consumed individually or mixed and matched. They come in elegant glass bottles infused with our signature blend of THC, CBD, and plant-derived terpenes. Our phased rollout sees a complementary product added to the mix every 6 to 12 months. We're starting with our elevated seltzers, which are bubbly, bold, and refreshing. We phase in our cannabis mocktails, which are unique to the industry and built as the perfect cocktail replacement or base. And we round things out with our botanical bitters, which are bright and aromatic and add extra flavor to every beverage while putting dosage in our consumers' hands. The cannabis market is growing extremely fast and accelerating with every quarter. The current legal market is projected to exceed $19 billion in sales for 2021, with the beverage category specifically forecasted to exceed $100 million over the next 4 years alone. Keep in mind, this is only for the current legal market. With these numbers top of mind, the time really is now. The overall cannabis category for beverage has grown 150% over the last 12 months, thanks to our mix of alcohol, active cannabis, and canna-curious consumers who are supercharging this growth now and well into the future. You'll see that beverage is quickly becoming the category with hockey stick growth and exceeding every other consumable in the market. Our market expansion plan delivers a velocity of more than 16 million units to our target consumers with an average profit of $2.40 across each of our product family units, leading to 38 million in revenue by 2025. We have tested the product offering through the Greater Bay Area across private events and food service experiences and are ready to bring the product to a wider market. We have a clear and deliberate 5-year plan that aligns with the accelerated growth of our partners, Vertosa, Space Station, and Kiva. This allows us to reach our target consumers thirsty for our product offering. We will launch in California, the largest consumption market for cannabis in the United States. Kiva's established network has outlets that have demand to place more than 400,000 units of cannabis beverages within California alone for the 2022 fiscal year. With our strong supply chain and sell-in partners, we will launch with specific tier 1 notable retailers, then quickly expand to tiers 2 and 3. The marketplace is heating up with competitors such as Cann and Artet, as well as AlcBev veterans such as Molson Coors and Lagunitas making waves. Yet there is still no clear multi-market leader that's delivering on this premium flavor-first offering that meets this Cali sober bar cart movement. We deliver all of our recipes and combinations in-house, so there's no white labeling here. This is a clear standout difference from our competitive set. Our products are designed in collaboration with some of your favorite Bay Area food and wine visionaries and James Beard Award winners such as Trick Dog's Caitlin Lamont. Our team, humble and mighty, is led by myself and Nathan Johnson. Together, we have direct and adjacent industry experience delivering 15 plus years of best practices across cannabis, CPG, hospitality, and retail. Our team is hungry and agile, but most importantly, we have the connections to the existing market and our desired target consumers and a track record of execution. We've brought together a strong board of advisors from world-renowned companies and industries like Google, Twitter, Bacardi, and Castle Rock Wines, each contributing key knowledge and vital networks to support our business and ensure our success. We are actively seeking $2.5 million, which would allow us to launch products in Q1 2022. Just over half of those funds will be used for marketing and talent that continue to separate us from the rest of the pack. The remaining balance will be split between operations and product supply chain. So, if you're as interested in this emerging beverage category and space as we are, then let's talk details. I promise to spill all the tea. Sante.
Thank you very much, Jake. Thanks for finishing strong. Well, with that, I'm gonna turn it over to our judges.
I think you should have sent a case of this to each judge ahead of time. That would have been a wise move.
I mean, just put your address in the personal chat to me and we can take care of that.
Hold
is
on.
This, one thing I was just unclear about, is this already out there? This is in stores and everything right now?
Not at present. We have tested through artisanal food markets and other makers fairs with our CBD alternative. That's fed the market to lead for the CPG opportunity, which will be launching in Q1 2022.
But Jed, just adding to what Jake said there, but we do have physical product samples, including the brand, the actual bottle that we're going to use. All of that has been created into real life prototypes.
Who does production?
Production is handled by Space Station, a manufacturing partner just outside of Sacramento, California. They're also expanding into the Colorado market in short order, which is why in our 5-year plan, Colorado is queued as our next market opportunity. Great question.
Yep. I think the big question from a consumer standpoint here is, what does it do? How does it make me feel? Whether you're talking about your product or euphorics more generally, or nootropics more generally, how does it actually make the consumer feel? I know you just spent several minutes kind of articulating that to us, but what's the selling point? And if taste is the selling point that you're making over some of the other benefits that are articulated by the eutropics folks or nootropics folks, I guess the question is, are you going to have enough marketing spend to be able to do enough taste tests to get to critical mass in terms of a customer base to build a business?
Well, that's a great question. First off, thank you for asking that, because I'm going to load you up with some information. To build the product just to get here, as I mentioned, we had those artisanal craft fairs as well as those makers markets. In that instance, we sold over 50,000 units direct to consumers in more of a soda jerk style using hemp-derived CBD, which helped us really evolve the sense of what our potential consumers want and need, as well as the flavors that we wanted to produce. Then over the course of the last year with COVID, we reduced that down into a very targeted group, our human-centered design resource group of over 150 respondents spread over the state of California. We did an interesting way of sort of socially distant lemonade stands, if you will, in which we were able to test products, both our own and comp set, in blind taste tests to inform not only our own recipes in terms of flavor, but also understand what wasn't working in others. Now, this needs to get specifically then into the euphorics effect. We guarantee that our products will hit you within under 5 minutes, but 5 minutes feels on the average what everyone is consistently experiencing. This gives you a general euphoria, one that is highly sessionable. That is why we specialize in low dose alternatives. We do something that we call the perfect tens, which is a blend of THC and CBD, as well as that cannabis terpene with other floral terpenes. That whole combination is very similar to the way that wine is made. Most people don't realize this, but if you're tasting dark cherry or shoe leather in your wine, that's because of the terpenes that are being used. We use that exact same application to create complex flavors in what we're doing, but also to enhance that general euphoric effect. We found through our human-centered design feedback loop that in general, our consumers, roughly about the 80 percentile, are finding themselves having that fast-acting effect in 5 minutes flat. That lasts roughly anywhere from 40 to 65 minutes, depending on the consumer, oftentimes leading to a second consumption within the hour or within the secondary hour for 2 beverages for their overall consumption setting. 0 hangover.
And saying that slightly differently, Brandon, that's a great question. That's why we really focus on the low dose market. And as Jake said, the sessionability. One of the biggest problems in the industry, if Jake were to flash up the problem slide, is some of this stuff is just not approachable that's on the market. Can, which is probably the beverage company that most people are actually familiar with the most, they've proven this market through low dose. They're 2 milligrams, we're 3 milligrams, so we're slightly above that. But can also comes in a much smaller can. I mean, they're a great product, but we have more of that premium feel, that form factor that people are really looking for in this space. So it leaves you with control, but you still have that euphoria. You're still connected. And that's the trend that we're seeing across, number one, cannabis beverage, but overall across the Zennial and Millennial markets as they look for these alcohol beverage alternatives.
And if I may layer one extra thing onto what we've shared with you, which has already been a lot, what we're seeing right now in the space is that it's less of a story of competition and more of a situation of frenemies. For the existing market, there's not enough offering within the cannabis space to really engage every consumer. To justify the category even further and supercharge its growth, we need more players just like Avec Bloom and otherwise to join in the space and offer alternatives that supercharge this within the cannabis space and therefore outside of the cannabis space as well.
Yep. That's right.
What's the cost? What are your margins?
So for the seltzers, right now we're a little bit on the low side. Truthfully, we're single digits. The 1% actually is going up to more of about 8-9% right now. This is just for the first year. By the time we hit year 5, we are projected to see margins in excess of 50%. It's just obviously with the low volumes right now, additional tariff costs. Some of our containers are actually coming from China, so the 25% tariffs doesn't really help anything. So we're kind of navigating that space right now. But right now, I would say we're about 10% for the seltzers. On Lembex and bitters, just given the volume, we're upwards around 30% on those each.
Great.
Thank you very much, Jake and Nathan. Now that you have primed us perfectly for the golden state of mind, I just want to thank everybody for pitching and the great job, startups. And thank you very much, judges, for being with us. With that actually concludes our startup pitches. And I will just turn it over to Eileen to bring us to the next on agenda.
Yeah, so I will open the breakout room for all the judges and the faculty members to deliberate on the top 3 startup pitches today. And the rest of us will stay here for the founders fireside chat. I'm so excited about that. Okay, I'll open the room first. Yeah, so well, I see Brad and Richard Din are both here. Thank you so much for coming here. I know Richard is joining us from Hong Kong, so it's like 7 a.m. for you. We're just very honored to have both of you. I guess we will kick off with a couple questions, and I'll also monitor if there's any questions in the chat section, and we can get to them as well.
Great to be here. Thank you. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, so just a quick introduction. Brad co-founded the company Lime in 2017 to address the burning global challenges that come with the rapid urbanization, congestion, pollution, and isolation, with the vision of improving our daily life by revolutionizing the future of urban mobility. As one of the fastest growing startups, Lime has been operating in over 30 countries globally and growing in a short few years. And Richard graduated from UC Berkeley in 2008, studying Economics and economics. A few years after working at large companies, he left and decided to form a startup company with several other fraternity brothers from UC Berkeley. After trial and error, they launched Caviar in 2012, a food delivery company that was eventually acquired in 2014. Since then, he has been investing in and advising other startup companies with his former co-founders. So I guess my first question is, thinking back on like the beginning of your entrepreneurial journeys, what got you into the business idea? Like, how did you decide, hey, this is the thing that I'm gonna spend the next 5 years working on?
Richard, you want to go first? Since
Sure,
you're now
yeah.
so by far,
Sure. Well, my co-founder we weren't co-founders at the time yet, but every time I'd come over to dinner, he'd always bug me about starting a business with him. And I was very hesitant at first, and mostly because I knew nothing about starting a company. I knew nothing about building websites or apps. So I just kept saying no, no, no. But then after a while, I realized that I was being scared for no reason. And so I really decided that the worst thing that could happen to me would be that I would learn a lot of new things that you can't really learn in school. And so finally he asked me again, and I said, okay, let's do this. Like, you know, there's nothing to lose here. There's only potential gain here. And so it wasn't so much the business idea that got me interested. It was more about the opportunity to learn by starting my own company.
That's cool. And Brad, what about you?
For me, I think it really depends on how we look at or define it as a startup. I think Lime is the number 6 or number 7 for me. So it's just kind of a personal hobby or habit in a way. I love to change things for good reason. So I always look around, and every day, I think we all have that, but not every idea we have how to improve our life or anything that turns into a business opportunity. And I think that I'll just differentiate that a little bit. So we got buzzed, we're bothered by many things in our life, right? Sometimes we'll just live with it. Sometimes we'll ask ourselves, can we make it better? And on top of that, and if it just fitting the passion that I have and fitting the right moment to really make a change, and can see the business model to support it, I will start a business. So I think Lime is no exception as well. We all got fed up by the traffic. I think every single one on this call. We all stuck in the traffic. We all suffered from the pollution. We probably had a gazillion different ideas, right? How we can improve this. But to me, that I'm a biker myself, so this is my passion as well. And how we apply that to a not just a product, but also turn it into a sustainable business is where the moment that I think, hey, we should just really make it happen and make a big impact. It's not only about Lime, how successful it is, it's about a movement we can generate. And that I believe, Richard shares some of that, right? They're like the pioneer of food deliveries. If you look at today, this becomes default. At the time was a really, let's say, novel idea, right? Kind of new, nobody, get used to it. And nowadays, I think pretty much I would bet everyone on this call experienced the food delivery.
Yeah, that was awesome. I think, you're exactly right. I think Caviar, Richard, when you and your co-founder started, it was like back in 2011. Were there like people, was it like hard for you to get users and like get restaurants to sign up for the platform?
It was only difficult to get restaurants because they weren't used to this idea of outsourcing the delivery to a third-party company. And so, we're entering pretty much a brand new market, and they had a kind of bet on us as well to help them. And they were completely unfamiliar with this idea. And so our first couple of restaurants were actually a little bit difficult to get. But after that, word of mouth between restaurant owners and managers helped us out, and we're able to get restaurants much easier. For users, I think it was pretty easy to get. I think there was always a demand for food to be delivered to people. And so we didn't really have any issues on that side.
That's good to hear. And I love that both Lime and Caviar are, I would say, like pretty heavy on operations. So that sort of leads to my next question. When you rolled out to a different city, and I know that Lime is like in over 30 countries now, I guess like when you roll out to a different country, how did that work? Like, do you just like create a playbook and hand off to the city or country manager and just wish that things can be copied really well in a different market? Or what was special about market?
Yeah, I think the two things really help us. Definitely, we have a playbook, but the playbook, the most important part of the playbook is not a formula. The important part of it are two. Number one, we have a global strategy, meaning the mission and the vision never change, regardless which country we're in. The product will be, universal in terms of hardware and software. Then the second piece is really in the playbook is execute locally. So that decentralized organization and authorization to the local team is one of the secret sauce that we were able to penetrate. I was joking with my team the other day, right? Other than Arctic, that we probably don't see a use of like, e-bike and scooters on Arctic. We are penetrating like all the other continents in roughly about 9 months. So it was really not easy to do, and there's no successful formulas that we can copy from. So, and the only way you could make it work is to find a good general manager in the country or region, and then really authorize them to make the best judgments.
I see. Is that also what Kevlar did?
Yeah, very similar. You can have a playbook, but every market's a little bit different. And so you have to learn and adjust. And going back to what Brad said, that's where you have to really trust your general manager and make sure that you made the right hire in that area.
Wow. And when first starting off, if the company didn't have tons of capital, how did you find the right team, right people to run operations?
Sure. I guess.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah, every startup is different. We are trying to generalize some of the things, hopefully be helpful to the audience, right? But every startup is different. So, Richard, you want to share yours?
Yeah, I mean, when you first start off and there's not a lot of capital, it's very tough to hire key people. And if you try to form a compensation package for a hire, you can always go to another company and they'll always offer more money. And so you kind of want to sell these employees, future employees and recruits on your vision, like your team. This is what the company is trying to do. And so we didn't have that much money in the beginning. And one of our first employees, we convinced him to take a 80% pay cut. And we did that by selling him on the vision of what we're trying to do and how we're trying to change the world in a small little way. And so, yes, hiring with very little capital is tough, but it is possible.
Yeah, I echo that. In our case, that I think three things matters and helps. One is the vision and the passion, right? You won't be surprised that the initial team at Lime, they're all bike enthusiasts, and many are even the world-class athletes. They always, it's not that I'm trying to convince them that cycling and also outdoor type of transportation is good. They're already convinced. They're believers, right? They're seeking for opportunities to make it a big movement. Therefore, a lot of folks joined the company with love, not just for money. They're here with passion, with love, with belief. And that also helped Lime to achieve the execution capability and the speed that we have achieved. They worked really hard. We all together. And I think that's one of the things. The second thing is trust. The trust people have in the company, in the management team, in the founders, I think benefits a lot as well. They, every startup goes through the same stage, right? When I was a venture capitalist, we were joking about it as well. The initial people you attract are 3 Fs: their friends, their families, and their fools. And there are 3 Fs that will join your company, right? And the families will support you regardless. The friends is really joining the company with trust. So I think the trust, the reputation, the track record does matter. People look at you and say, I don't know the future of the company. There's no good enough sign yet, but I believe the founder, I believe in vision, and they will join. So not surprisingly, the initial team I had, 40% were from Berkeley. So that was the highest we ever heard of in terms of Berkeley alumni working at one company. And the third thing I think is slightly different though from Richard and many other startups. We do have money. We have a lot of money. So that does help us to hire the top talents to really scale the team. In some of the rough numbers, the year one, well, the beginning point, I have me and my co-founder, Toby, which is a Haas alumni as well. And by end of year one, we have roughly about 400 people. By end of year two, we have roughly about I think I forgot exactly the number, 1,100 people full-time, and also 3,000 to 4,000 full-time contractors working at a company at a year or two.
Wow, that's impressive. Brad, I would like to ask a follow-up question since you mentioned, I guess my question the previous question didn't really apply because Lime had a lot of money. I guess, could a lot of money ever be a problem? Because I know that sometimes people talk about a potential like down round if you, you like attract investors' money, but then can't really perform against the benchmark or against the targets. Like, how did you think about that?
Yeah, I think the way I look at it is the money or capital means resource. There's more resources is never a bad thing, right? There's, I think that analogy, which may or may not be the best, apply here, is one of my friend, right? Why you drive a 500 horsepower car? Well, he said, it's good to have it. I don't need to use it every single time, but it's good to have it. But I have to say that capital give you the optionality to execute on different things. You also create, isn't just money by it alone is good, it's a resource. But the status of having a lot of money attracts different profiles. And that's where the thing sometimes gets weird, since you not only attract the believers, you attract the people wanted to just take a ride. And they come to the company for different purpose, sometimes the wrong purposes. The simple way to put it, the way I'd like to put it, there are folks join your company to make it great. You want those folks. There are folks join your company because it's great. You don't want that. And in our case, we had attract quite a few folks like that, since the status of the company, the capital we have, right? And sometimes it's really hard to differentiate. People talks well, but until they started to perform and do things, it's really hard to tell. So I think that's a side negative benefit, negative effect on the company, I have to say.
I see. And next question, I think we'll go to Richard, because I know that Brad worked at Tencent for a couple years before co-founding Lime. But Richard, you were only like 25 years old when you co-founded Caviar. And when the company, I guess, was expanded into a certain stage and you suddenly had to manage people, was that process pretty natural for you? How did you transition into this manager role from more of, all do it by yourself?
I would say it's not very natural to become a manager, especially at 25. I mean, I didn't really have that much experience doing it. So I actually had to read some books on basic communication skills. So there's a book I read called How to Win Friends and Influence People, where you kind of learn on how to communicate with people and understand what they're trying to say and trying to get them on the same page. And so it's not a very natural thing for me, but the least I could do was read about it online and see what I could do to improve myself as a manager. So.
Cool. And when you guys fundraised, I guess both Brad and Richard, do you still remember the first paycheck that you closed? During that pitch, do you feel like, oh, I can pretty much foresee that this investor is going to say yes to us? What would it be like?
Brad, you want to go first?
Again, everyone's case is different. Since before that, I also co-founded a venture fund called Keynote Capital, and I managed it through I create a fund, define the fund, and raise the capital. We managed 680 million in fund 1 and fund 2. So I was on the darker side of the table for quite a bit of years. And then Tencent, of course, we invest in quite a bit companies, small ones, large ones. And then before that, I was on the brighter side of the table, was a founder before that as well. So my experience may not necessarily apply, but I think some of the lessons probably will be helpful. First, before we started Lime, we spent quite a bit of time doing the research, not just say, hey, let's try to throw some spaghetti on the walls, which was stick. We spent about 6 months doing all the researches, every single part of it. Of course, we cannot know all the answers, but at least that we know the fundamentals of the industries, the hurdles, the challenges, the players in the space, and the decision makers. So we have quite a bit, I would say, very solid plan when we start a company. And when we're doing the pitch, of course, it's fairly solid since we spent 6 months on preparing everything, but not for the VCs, for ourselves, to start a company heading the right direction. That's what we hope for. And the second part, as a VC, people kind of like know, what they're trying to look for and the framework, the formulas they're using. I think that helped quite a bit. It's not, again, it's not using that knowledge to game the system, but rather to prepare better. So I wasn't able to listen to all the pitches, but I think, I caught the last 1.5, I would say, great pitch, great products, great directions. There are things you could do better, of course, as, in the pitch session or prepare for it. So that, I think that definitely helped. But at the end of the day, at this early stage, investors are evaluating mostly is the sector you are in and the team. Everything else can pivot, can change.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for sharing that experience. And Richard.
Yeah, I actually do remember my first pitch meeting. It was with the Y Combinator in 2011. And so we went in there and it was only a 10-minute pitch. And I remember at the time they were handing out about $170,000 in funding, which I guess nowadays is not that much money, but for us, it kind of meant everything. And so after those 10 nerve-wracking minutes, they told us that they would get back to us later. And so my co-founder, he actually prank called me and he said, "Oh, I just heard back, we didn't get in." And turns out we actually did get in. So he said, "Just kidding." And that same day, I sent a notice to my former employer. And that's when I decided to go full-time on doing this whole entrepreneurship journey. And so those 10 minutes in that pitch meeting actually changed the rest of my life forever, because that's when I decided to go full-time on doing a startup.
Right. And now that, after the successful exit, you're sitting on the other side of the table, quite the opposite experience from Brad. How are you looking at other startups, the founders pitches, now that you have experienced the whole startup cycle yourself?
Sure, I'll go first, and then I guess Brad can go later. Brad has probably seen way more pitch decks than I have. But I still follow the Y Combinator formula. So I really care about the teams that we invest in. I want to see how close they are, if they can get through tough times. I want to see that they can be resilient even without a lot of capital. And so those are some of the things that I look for. I look for really scrappy teams. And I try to invest in teams that remind me of us before. And so that's all I really have a data point on. And so that's how I invest.
Brad, you mind sharing a little bit as well?
Yeah, sure. The being a institutionalized, formally institutionalized VC firm before, and also manage corporate investment at Tencent, and also I do some personal investment as well. Hard to describe in a short form, but I think the really number one thing. Let me try it. Let me try to. Number one thing, it depends on the stage. At a really early stage, I know you guys put a lot of work into that, your forecast and everything, right? Honestly, as a VC, that I'll give a significant discount on that, since you don't know yet. So I think at a really early stage, really two things matters. Three things I would say. Number one is the sector you're in. Is that really a big sector? Is that really solving a big problem, even though the problem might seem very small at this moment? It could be a big issue. Does it have a big impact? I think in a big ocean, the chance you can swim far is much more likely than in a small pond, right? Regardless how fast you swim, in a small pond, you will not be able to get far. The number two thing it's what I mentioned is the team and the co-founders and also the core team. And it's not about track record plays a little bit role in there, but eventually is whether the sector, the product you have, you know, put a lot of thoughts behind it and really have a deep understanding of it. Doesn't mean you have to be all right, but it does mean that you put efforts. It could be a really honest say, hey, I looked into this, there's no data, right? You know, fine. That's, you know, if you look at Lime, so what's the reference point? Well, there's nothing like that before. So I don't have a reference point. I'm not going to make that up. I will tell you, however, I looked at every single bike share programs globally, which one works fine, which one works okay, which one doesn't work. The biggest in Paris, the earliest was in Amsterdam, you know, in China where it doesn't make money, and why the current one of the biggest is in Mexico City, and how they are funded, how the decisions are made, how much they charge every single one of them. I think that will really help the investors say, okay, this guy actually knows what he's talking about, what she is talking about, and put a lot of thoughts behind it. And that gives the confidence, even if your product today doesn't work, you will figure it out. You will learn fast. So I think that matters a ton. And the third thing is really depends on the stage is traction. At a very early stage, Richard, you know, doing angel investment or whatnot, you probably encounter that as well, right? Sometimes it's just an idea, they're nothing. But if you're asking to a stage of like, you know, close to Series A, then you better have some tractions. And that traction doesn't mean you're profitable at a moment, doesn't mean you can scale significantly, but at least some of the key things are on the right track.
Thank you so much. I think that's such a great point, because I feel like when startups, I also co-founded a startup back in Beijing 2 years ago. We were like scrapping for numbers. We are trying to come up with these like huge market numbers, but what do they really mean to the investors and to your own team? I think that's a great question. And instead of, I guess, looking for those numbers online, it would be better to do real homework, to do real research on the consumers and the market that you're trying to serve. I know that we are on time, but I want to ask a final question if I can. It's such a great opportunity. I don't want to miss on this opportunity to ask questions to Brad and Richard. My last question would be, I know like a lot of the founders in our program are usually asked by investors questions like, how do you go about defending your business? That's like a really tough question. Like, what's the easiest part of your company for others to copy? How would you think about competition strategically, and how would you answer this type of question?
Sure, I'll go first. I mean, there are things that you can do to defend your company and kind of build a moat around your company so that other people can't copy it. And so, for example, with a lot of food delivery apps nowadays, when they work with the restaurant, they ask for an exclusivity agreement so that they cannot work with other restaurants. And so it's kind of first mover advantage, which is, you know, fairly simple to do. But, you know, kind of the most important point, in my opinion, is just being better than the competition. And so never getting comfortable and always making your product and service better and better. And so, yes, you should keep an eye on your competition, but you want to kind of look at your own company and say, okay, what can we do better? And so that's kind of one of the things that we did. We always built new features. We always asked our customers, what do you want to see? We always ask our restaurants, hey, what are we doing poorly? What can we do better? And so, you know, competition does make people better. And so this is just one of the core ideas of economics. And so, yes, we do have those exclusivity agreements and first mover advantages that can help us build the moats. But more importantly, we also look within ourselves and kind of ask, what can we do better?
Thank you.
I think the number one thing, Richard already mentioned it, right? Be better than anyone else. If you're in the market, you're trying to do a startup, you're not as good as others, and hope the others does not come to your territory. I think that's just daydreaming, honestly speaking. I use the similar analogy when I have all hands at Lime and the previous team, right? We do not drive by looking at a rear view mirror. You occasionally take a look at it, say what's around you, what's behind you, and that's about it. You still drive looking forward. And that's what we should focus on. I think startup and any other companies. There are business models that does naturally help you build a moat. Network effects, economy of scales, things like this. I think you should be aware of that and also should try to leverage it if you can, but those are not determining factors of a company being successful or not. Facebook, yes, they can defend their business by a strong network effect, but they win the market because they're better, not because of network effect. If that was the case, then Friendster or there are like 20 of them. I look at every one of them, Friendster, MySpace, they already won the market. It's not a case. So I think those are the things are helpful, but not a determining factor. Again, that I think, Richard, me, and many other alumni are willing to spend the time here. It's not to brag about ourselves. It's really, hopefully, those things are helpful to you, to our Berkeley alumni, to think through things and to focus on the right things. A startup in particular, you're in a surviving mode. In a surviving mode, let's not worry about competitions or that. And more than often that you are in a race with many others, and more than often you are challenging the existing incumbents, right? And in that sense, they already have all the modes you wanted. If that matters, then you don't stand a chance. But the fact is, the startup always challenges a lot of incumbents because they can make their products and services better. So I think that's really the core thing to focus on, and the other things that naturally comes with it.
Cool. Thank you so much, Richard and Brad, for being here with us today. And I think a lot of the things that you guys shared are so invaluable to the startups, to the founders here in the audience. We are just so grateful for your time. And please feel free to stay. And I think we're gonna give out the awards since all the judges are back.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you all. Really great to be here and see so much interest and passion in the startup world. I think startup is not about the glory comes with it. It's really the spirit. You want to make a change. You want to make an impact. So keep on. I'm proud of you all.
Thank you so much, Matt. Okay, I think let's roll on to the awards. Graham, you have the slides up?
Yep, give me 1 second. All right, can everyone see that? Awesome. Yeah, thank you all. It's been a great day. I've really enjoyed watching the presentations, and it's awesome to see how much progress every team has made. Talking to the judges, everyone said it was a great presentation. Every judge said that it was a very good cohort, and it was tough trying to figure out exactly who was going to be the winner, but they finally have figured it out, and we're happy to announce our winners of the competition today. So first, before we begin, we have to thank our sponsors and partners. Thanks to you for supporting Launch, for supporting all of these teams. We couldn't do it without you, and we really are appreciative of everything that you've given to us and the cohort. So thank you to all of our sponsors. And then without any further ado, we'll get right into it. Starting up with the audience's choice. We had the audience vote on who they thought was the best pitch, and the audience choice award winner is Advisorly. Congratulations. A round of applause. Up next, we actually had to create a special award because this team presented very, very well, and they just did a great job. All the judges thought they were very good. The audience thought they were good. So we created this special award just for them, just because of the pitch and how well it was presented. And so we're presenting the Best of Pitch award to Clever.fm. Congratulations. And then going into the finals, in third place, we have a tie between two teams for third place. That was Minwo and Coco Cart. Congratulations to both of you. In second place, scroll too fast, Entropic Materials, congratulations. And then finally, the first place team and the winner of Demo Day for Launch 2021 in the spring cohort, Mentor, congratulations.
Congratulations.
Congrats to all the teams. It was really awesome watching all the pitches. The judges thought they were all great, and we all had a good time listening to them. Eileen, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Yeah, sorry, I am creating the breakout rooms right now. So I'll create one room for each team. And give me 1 minute.
Thank you, everyone. You guys, everybody did so incredibly well. I'm just completely blown away with the work everybody did. So thank you so much for the opportunity to pitch. And you guys, hopefully we can all stay in touch over the launch Slack. You guys were awesome. So thank you guys so much. Deeply honored. Thank you.
Cool. Let's have a couple of more acceptance speeches, y'all. This is your chance.
Yeah, we usually get people up on the stage and talking.
Yeah. Aaron, hit us up.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm blown away. Echoing the points, right? This was an incredible cohort. I can't wait to see everybody go on and continue their entrepreneurship. Morgan and I are obviously thrilled. We're trying to do something really complicated, and I had no idea that we would be here at this point if you would have asked me at the beginning of launch. But I'm really excited and definitely going to put this recognition to good work. So thanks, everybody.
Cool. All right, Mel and Derek, let's go.
Sure. I just want to say thank you. It's been a long journey. In the early days, people kept asking, why are you doing this? Why is this necessary? It's too small. It's too this, that. So it's really great to, have that validation today, to have people understand it, to get it. The questions from the judges were awesome, thinking toward expansion and not just, the limitations. So thank you so much. This will definitely go a long way for us as a team.
Hey, Derek, do we all get free cheesecake now? Is he still on? Anybody from Coco card on?
I think they might have logged off because it was like 5 a.m.
Yeah.
So
fair enough. Cool.
Okay, I think I've created all the rooms for the teams present here. Let me know in the chat if you don't see that. I'm gonna open the rooms now. If you don't see your team's name, let me know. Hit the breakout room button and move yourselves into your room. And investors and friends here, if you're interested in talking more with certain teams, just join their breakout rooms, and we'll leave this open for the next hour until 5:30.
Yeah, Eileen, I just wanted to thank my co-founder, Allison, and our team who's watching right now for the Audience Choice Award. Yeah, I feel very blessed to be on this team. So
thank you, Manny. Great job.
Yeah, I did that. Yeah, thank you, everyone. And yeah, Manny, thank you to you and to the rest of our team.
Where's the breakout button? I'm sorry.
It should be in the bottom.
Doesn't see it.
Yeah, like on the bottom row, you should be able to see a button called breakout rooms. And if you click on it, and then it'll pop up a window.
People.
So you don't have a button that says breakout rooms. What exactly?
Yeah, we don't.
Yeah, we don't have breakout room buttons.
I don't have a breakout room button.
I can start doing it manually.
Thank you.